dialogue of two-way conversations requiring both the coach and the individual to be in the proper state of mind. At the end of the day, it's a supervisor talking with their subordinate. That's the conversation. It doesn't matter now, yes, HR might be in the room for the HR folks that are here, but HR is there. It's still that conversation. That's the relationship. That needs to be understood and take it seriously. And that's the other side of that too, where, I mentioned before, but if someone decides to throw their lot in with me, they want to work with me, I take that very seriously. We are helping them provide for themselves and their families. It's a responsibility we have, and we have to be empathetic about that they're coming to us hoping this is the thing that's going to help them feed their families, that work. We just got to be able to then work with them to understand through the self-sabotage and some of the other things, or help them succeed to even higher level than they thought they could get to. But I take it very seriously. So much so, like you can tell, I made a manual on the dang thing. So, all right. The coach must have their emotional intelligence activated to accurately diagnose the body language, word choice, as well as the tone and intonation of the individual as they are being coached. Right? So they're eyeballing them, kind of seeing, okay, they know where they're at. You get a feel for the people. They also must be aware and regulate their own body language, word choice, tone, and intonation. They got to be reflective enough to know how you are presenting to that individual. The individual must be open to receiving direct feedback on their performance and not feel as though they are being attacked. Without a healthy connection between the supervisor and employee, a coaching session is nothing more than a lecture. And who's been on the receiving end of one of those during their time? Bless you. That's most of my life. Just to be clear on that. That's what it was. Again, just talking at you. They want to say words to get it done with, and then that's it. The phrase that I use for that, by the way, is we don't like doing these conversations, right? No one really likes them. I think icky. I mean, ick is a thing on TikTok and when I got the case of the icks or whatever, but they're just icky. It feels gross sometimes having to have the tough conversations. You just want to get it done and be over with, right? But that's not fair to the individual. That's the mindset I want everyone just to keep in the back of their brain. At the end of the day, we want to be fair to the person that we are having this conversation with, and what do we need to be aware of to help put them in a place to be as successful as possible. All right, now before we go any further, it's important to outline a few psychological and physiological processes that, when not accounted for, will render your coaching detrimental to you and your employees' long-term success. All right, let's get to the next page. So this walnut-looking thing is a brain. So note, I am not a brainologist. The following may be more mindfulness than managerial science. However, it is meant to help leaders at all levels gain a basic understanding of how the brain processes and acts on information. The brain is constantly receiving information on the exterior world as well as constant feedback on internal processes. The human brain has evolved over millennia to parse this information, evaluate, and respond to it in three distinct ways. There's three ways that your brain is constantly evaluating the world around you. And it's important to understand what's activated when and the ramifications for that. So first, we got the lizard brain. That's this brain stem, this area back here. This is the area that keeps your heart pumping, your lungs breathing, except if you're underwater, and bowels digesting. If there's chemicals that need to be dispensed, this is the area that sends a signal. This is all the stuff we thankfully do not have to consciously think about. Imagine if we had to, I don't know, think about sweating. Like, this would be the last thing. Like, man, you know what? Could you go? Hold on, I'm getting hot. Okay, all better now. That'd just be weird, right? You want something taking care of that, and takes back there, back in the lizard brain. So next is going to be the paleo-mammalian brain. Paleo means old, okay, so it's the old mammal brain. This is where memory and emotions hang out, where we can actively move our muscles, perform tasks, and hold our breath if we so choose. See, just did it, right? Paleo-mammalian brain. All right, on the next side is going to be neo-mammalian brain. Neo means new, so it's the new mammal brain. This area takes all the information and signals from the rest of the brain and processes it. Uses this data to bring texture and context to our world. Storytelling, predictions, and abstract thinking live here. This is where you learn new things. It's trying to figure stuff out, right? This is what basically makes us people, that the neo-mammalian brain. That's what that one does. Now, when you learn something new, like driving a car, your neo-mammalian brain works overtime to understand and train the other two brains on this new skill. After a while, the lizard and the paleomammalian brains take over something as complicated as driving, because it has become muscle memory and does not require as much, if any, new mammalian brain processing. This is good because of how the different brains process information. So that's when they're saying muscle memory. You're literally figuring, like, you guys remember we had to learn how to tie shoes? Anybody got kids tying shoes? Good Lord, right? Around the tree and through, right, the rabbit, whatever it is. Now you literally do it without thinking. Most of you got here driving today without even thinking about driving. Go back to driver's ed. I had grown up driving a tractor, so I was good once I got in there. Jamie, who I went through training with, there was two of us at the time, she did not have any prerequisite, and it was very scary getting in the vehicle with her. Like, she didn't understand to let go of the wheel when you're trying to turn back. So she's got her arms all crossed like this. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, click, we're good. Okay, let's get through it. But again, it's just, you're having to learn it, right? It takes an awful lot of energy, but eventually it's muscle memory. It's that handoff occurs. So the lizard and paleomammalian brains can process limitless information at one time. And just think about the daily commute we talked about from work or to the grocery store. You're steering a half-ton piece of steel at 55 miles an hour, listening to the radio, while your stomach is growling after smelling the burger joint that is on the way to the store. All this input's coming in, right? And it's happening without you even realizing it. You're just cruising along. Again, these two brains, the other two brains, they're handling it. They can absorb as much information as you can throw at them. The paleomammalian brain and your brainstem, they are literally just designed to receive information. Just bring it. They don't care. They can handle it all. However, when you start, again, we talk about start driving, or you're driving to a new location in a different city, things are markedly different. So driving to a new location in a new city requires you to engage your neo-mammalian brain. So just right, you're trying to make, okay, my turn, I'm looking for the street. It said I need to find the store to turn right. All these different things are going on. We've been there so we're driving and we're getting close, and without even thinking, we're like, click, and turn off the radio, right? We turn off the radio so that we can see better, right? But that's what's happening, because it's extra data input that's coming in that your brain, it says, no, we need to stop right now, right? But why are they doing that? The neo-mammalian brain can only process a certain amount of information at one time. It's limited. It's, think of it like your computer's memory. If you have too many programs open at once, it starts to lag. And if you try opening any additional programs, it's going to freeze up and shut down. By turning the volume down, your brain was protecting itself from freezing up, from harm. And that's where that phrase, keep that in mind, from harm. Right? That's a very important word to remember with your brain. So yeah, it's like, you know what? I just need to be able to concentrate so you get things quiet, so you can do your thing. Because it doesn't want to, your body knows this would be a really bad time for my brain to shut down while I'm steering a vehicle down the road. That's what's happening. It's figuring it out and doing that.
Do you focus on people with neurodivergency?
What's that?
Do you focus on people with neurodivergency?
I don't talk about this, but in here particularly, but I have a ton of experience working with those folks and helping them excel. It's just an understanding of, they're so process based in the way that they look at things. The way you have, there's methods and procedures, but this is meant to be for the majority, not necessarily the minority on there. But I have neurodivergent folks in my family, so I've always been fine working with folks that wherever they happen to be on the spectrum, because I'm like, I just got to figure out what their process is. Oh, that's your process. Okay, here we go. And they're like, oh, okay, and off they go. But I'm just
finding that a lot of people, even if they're normal presenting,
yeah.
So we might all be working. I'm neurodivergent, so
yeah.
It's just,
oh no, and it's one of those things where it was underdiagnosed for roughly ever, and now folks are definitely getting a better handle on it. And the bigger piece of this, though, is, and we'll talk about that, there's negotiations you have with individuals, and there's negotiations you don't have. If it's process-based within your organization, like this is the standard way to do it, they have to be able to acquiesce to the large points. You're able to make accommodations where you can. And that's kind of where that's that chewy part. What part of the process definitively has to be done so that the output is correct, and where can you make accommodations for? It's like with any other, I don't like the word disability, but you know where I'm going with that, where you have to make accommodations. So that's been my experience, is when I had that come up. I work with operations. I ran operations for a very long time. That was always my thing. Like, I can, of the 10 steps that you have to do in your work or what it looks like, I can make accommodations on these 3 to make it work for you. So that way you're going to be able to perform at a high level. And most of the time that was enough of a give to where they were able to just, fine, I'll deal with these 7 as long as I get these 3. Like, okay, and off they go, which is fine. I don't care. I mean, I hate doing some work myself too. If I can negotiate to do it a different way, I'd like to as well. So does that help? Okay. That's always been my piece with that. All right. So next piece is going to be fight or flight. The fight or flight response resides deep in our DNA, and it's hardwired into the lizard and paleomammalian brains. When they detect danger, again, or the potential of harm, they flood the body with chemicals like adrenaline for energy, norepinephrine for focus, and cortisol, which is a steroid. That's the stress hormone, kind of given me this over the years, right? To prepare the body to run away or throw hands, right? Fight or flight, that's what's going to be happening. You're getting juiced up for something, you just don't know which one it's going to be. So when you are in a situation where the neomammalian brain becomes overwhelmed with vast amounts of data to process, it feels as if it is in danger. Right? Your new brain says, I am at capacity at this moment. What are we going to do here? All right, your lizard and paleomammalian brains cannot differentiate between internal and external threats. So they're getting basically some data back from the new brain saying, hey, I'm overwhelmed here. I'm in danger. They go, oh, fight or flight time. Here's a whole bunch of juice. You get to have all of that, all the adrenaline, norepinephrine, right? All the cortisol starts flooding there, which causes you to become overstressed. Now, remember when I discussed driving to an unknown address to a city, and you unconsciously turn down the volume in the car? Now imagine you're in a situation where you cannot turn down the volume. You know, like you are working in an office, or you're dealing with clients or guests. What do you do then? So if you're unable to remove the additional data inputs, your neomammalian brain will stop accepting new information until it has had time to process all the current programs to protect it from breaking. That is why when we see one of our staff stressed out at their desks with blank stare on their face, right, they're overwhelmed, just they're done with this, or if they're dealing with customers and you see it, they start getting that glazed over look. The best known practice that they have is to take a walk and go clear your head. Because that's literally what you're having them do. You just have them go for a walk, no new input, and the brain's like, okay, I can start chewing through this stuff now. Okay, I got it. So on my donut shops that I had, this is one where I put this into practice. We would have 2 to 3 of our cashiers doing their thing, obviously taking all the orders. And Portland, Maine is a tourist location, tons of folks coming in. And the Holy Donut is one of those places that was if it wasn't the first stop for people, it was in the top 3. They would come and get their donuts and then go to wherever they wanted to go see, to enjoy them or whatever. But they would have folks would be asking them the same questions over and over again. The one store that we had, we would do $600 in sales-ish in the wintertime, right, beginning of January, when everybody gave up sweets for, where they're going to the gym, and then we'd wait for them to be like, we'll get them in 3 weeks, and poof, 3 weeks later, they all showed up again, right? To the summertime when we've had some days that were north of $30,000 through these stores. It was insane how much traffic we would get, lines around the block type stuff, right? I told you, they're good donuts. But with that, the supervisors, I trained them. The specific training they had was they were not to pay attention to the donut levels and stock, or even like on the way things looked out in the lobby. We had people for that. Their job was to keep an eye on the cashiers until if they saw them starting to get that glazed over look, they just tap them on the shoulder, say, hey, go take a walk around the building. They'd hop on the register and just take over for them. They'd come back through, wash their hands, get ready to go, boom, put them right back in. That was their job as a supervisor for basically anytime we're in a rush period, just to make sure we didn't break anybody. Because at the end of the day, we want to take care of our folks. And hearing this, what's your favorite donut? Is the vegan really vegan? How do you know it's gluten-free? Are you certified? Do you have a B Corp? Where's Luke Lobster's at? And there's literally a sign outside the window. It says Luke's Lobster. It's big. It's literally right there. And you're like, right there, right? They have hundreds of times throughout the day, they're answering these same things. It's overwhelming. So that's what we trained them to, for that very reason. Okay. So with that, it's just they need to stop accepting information, mainly so they can process it, but also so the brain stops injecting all of those chemicals into their body. We just need them to calm down a little bit. We got you, okay? Then they can begin starting accepting new information coming in.
I feel like there's probably been an employee perspective, like myself, like I've worked in restaurants before, especially in the summertime. It's crazy like that here, and I feel like that would be really beneficial.
Yeah.
Like, serving and you're in all these people and the customers sometimes get rude, as I'm sure all of us are experiencing.
Does that happen here?
But I could see that, like in a working situation, like
Yeah.
a supervisor something else, that would take a lot off.
That's what it was, where it was simply just, that was the focus. Did they have other responsibilities as supervisor? Absolutely. But if there was, and we had basically a spot outside the door, if the line got to this area, their shift became just focusing on the team. It was just trained. They saw it. It was basically the second block. They didn't care what they didn't care what was going on. They would basically just let the staff know, like going, "Hey, I'm on." It was like, "I'm on register." Everyone knew they need the back needed to start paying closer attention to what stock levels were up front. Somebody literally would leave and go take care of the lobby. We'd short the kitchen staff to take care of the front. So like we had it all planned. Everyone was trained. And as soon as that line got back here, so go, I'm on the back. Everyone traded back out again. It was just, we had a flow to it just to protect the folks. And
Great, especially for being able to know, like, okay, I think I'm not my supervisor,
Yeah.
someone to come be there to help me or back me up if I need that.
well, and the reason we did it was obviously we care about those folks too, but it's very difficult to find people to stand in and register and do that work and do it well. So we want to protect them, end of the day. That was the biggest piece there, because I think, as everyone knows here, it's very difficult to find staff, especially in the restaurant world. So we made sure that we were protecting them. So, but yes, it was well appreciated by everyone. So again, the idea of feeling safe enough to accept additional information is key to effectively coaching your employees. So we need to address one more topic before we can move on to the coaching process itself. On our next spot here. How's everybody doing so far? Good? Yeah, okay. Again, this next piece is foundation of becoming your best self. So page 7, we've got a cool little pyramid over here. Everybody familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Yeah? My favorite hierarchy of needs. There's like 7 of them. This one's cool because it's got a pyramid. So but it's food, water, clothing, shelter is your base level. There's reproduction in there as well, but I don't think we're as worried about that in the business environment. Food, water, clothing, shelter. And beyond that. And so the idea here is you need to fill out each one of these levels. They need to be solidified as a foundation before you can move up to the next one. And you can pretty much, once you learn and kind of get an idea for this, you can tell where people, maybe they're not performing as well as they should be, or people you may know in your life where they're struggling. They're trying to fulfill other sections higher up before they've taken care of the bottom. And that is where they get this delta that goes on, which causes additional stress. So just something to be aware of there. Now, Abraham Maslow developed this theory of human motivation in the 1940s. It describes the levels and needs a person must meet to become their very best self. When it comes to coaching for performance, the hierarchy of needs provides insights into what our employees might be feeling before, during, and after a coaching session. The average worker is one missed paycheck away from having difficulty paying the rent, paying their bills, or purchasing food. Now, this isn't frontline. This is every worker in the country, let alone in the world. But this data hasn't changed since I originally saw it 20 years ago. And I know it was real well before then because people are involved. We spend up to, if money's coming in, the average person spends all of it. And they're worried about feeling good instead of taking care of that foundation that needs to happen. It's just average folks. And if you have any employees, I guarantee you they're there too. That's the assumption you just want to make. Now, imagine you're the average employee who was just notified by their boss they need to talk to them about a situation at work. What goes through their mind? It's probably something exactly like this. What is this about? Man, I bet it's about what happened the other day with that customer. Now this is your neo-mammalian brain, right? It just got a new data point in. Hey, we need to talk. Storytelling, trying to figure out what's going on. Boom, starts doing its thing. Taking data and trying to figure out what's going on. At the same time, your subconscious is also doing some storytelling of its own, specifically a worst case physiological needs affecting scenario, like, what if this is about that thing with the customer? What if they fire me? The rent is due.
And then they cancel it.
Correct.
And then the next day they go in.
Yes.
And they're tired, exhausted.
You got it.
freaked out,
You got it.
Can't listen to anything.
100%.
Totally affects their job performance.
Correct. Right?
So instead of saying we need to talk, maybe say, hey, I noticed that there was something that happened and specific. And this is how I would do it. I'm
We're going to get into all that. We're going to get into all that. And you'll see. You're fine. You're fine. And 100%. Even if you tell them, and this is the thing, even if you tell them, hey, tomorrow we're going to talk about the conversation you had with the client, and you articulate it that way. And there's heavy lifting you need to do ahead of time. We're going to talk about that. But it's going to be, they're thinking they're getting fired. Even if they know at the top, like they know this is just going to be a conversation, they cannot help but have some portion of it is going to be looking out to see, basically start strategizing and planning in the off chance they are let go. It's no matter your relationship with them. That's where, again, I'm going to talk about that piece. There's a lot of work, we're going to get into this, you have to do ahead of time before this is even useful. But even my best employees that I knew were rock solid, had their stuff together, when I started the conversation and I worked with them, they would have turned around and be like, you could see at the moment when they realized they weren't getting fired, their shoulders would drop and they would feel better. Somebody I wouldn't let go unless like they had, embezzlement or something, like, there's the thou shalt not, you're out the door. I've never not had this be a thing where it's there, regardless of how well you prep them, but you absolutely want to do your best to do that for sure. So this thought, subconscious or otherwise, immediately undermines the individual's base level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Food, water, clothing, shelter. They can't pay the bills. That's done. Has a potential to be a significant emotional event for the employee when an individual does not feel as if their their physiological needs foundation is solid. Their brain views the coming conversation as potential harm. Remember that phrase? This triggers the fight or flight response, releasing all those chemicals, preparing the employee for a confrontation, and is no longer able to process any new information. It is only focused on the upcoming threat to survival. Every one of your employees, I have this conversation with CEOs, I have this with boards, I have this with frontline supervisors when I'm asked to. Every one of them just needs to understand this is the thought that's going through your folks' mind. It may not be top of mind, but it's there. And it's having an effect on their ability to absorb information. Now, putting everything together. Coaching for performance will only work when both the supervisor and employee do not have the fight or flight response activated. Okay? Always assume your employee has the worst case scenario in mind whenever you are conducting a coaching session. You need to be calm and enter the discussion with the best of intentions. End of the day, this is a two-way conversation. You're there to talk with them and get them to help them and help understand why they made the decision they did, so that you can train them on what to do the next time when this is happening. The goal is to get your employee through the initial fight or flight response as quickly as possible and into a headspace where they can accept your coaching. To do this, you must use your emotional intelligence to help them understand you are not a threat to their physiological needs and are there to help them perform in a way that supports those needs. The way that I coach this in here, it's not in the manual. There's stuff that you got to get from me on here for reasons that you want to be able to signal to them as quickly as possible once you start your conversation, because the actual coaching itself, that tomorrow's going to be, you got work tomorrow. You got work after the conversation's done. And it's something as simple as, hey, all right, so we're here to talk about X, Y, and Z. So to cover what we need you to do the next time this happens. That simple phrase, the next time this occurs. Something where you just put that word in there and practice it. They may not even realize it up here, but back here, it heard it and went, wait, the next time, oh, okay. And then you can start the conversation and you'll see it, but you need to find a way to signal to them that there's going to be, in the off chance this happens again, that they're not being let go. Okay, they need to believe you have their best interest in mind. When correctly done, the initial fight or flight response will dissipate in 45 to 60 seconds. Takes about a minute. That's, and I got that directly from when I was being taught how to teach. Because and it still happens with me every single time I get up here. You're going to see it now because I'm talking about it. My brain's going to have to process it. But you get juiced with adrenaline, you get all of that, norepinephrine, and you get cortisol when you come up as an instructor to teach, because no one likes to stand up here and be judged. And your body's like, oh man, I'm worried. So if my face is turning red, it's because I'm having that reaction. It takes 45 to 60 seconds, you get through it, and then you're done. That's typically why they say tell a joke at the beginning, because it gives you some time for your body to realize that they're not throwing things at me and booing me off of the stage, okay? All right, so with that, it takes 45 to 60 seconds once the employee realizes that no threat exists, then the real work begins. All right, so one last thing. This level of trust, right, that you're not going to let them go just because, like they trust that they need to hear and take your coaching, starts long before the need to conduct a coaching session occurs. You cannot create it out of thin air. It must be fostered and developed well in advance during daily interactions with your team. If you are looking to this guide as a cure-all for poor supervisory, managerial, and leadership practices on your part, look elsewhere. This is not for you. And so we're going to move on because I'm not going to monologue on this, but I do want to make sure I hit this point home. Remember when we were saying you kind of got to look at your folks and you're kind of eyeballing to see if they're off a little bit or something isn't, you need to see how they're presenting to know if they're acting up or something's different about them. How do you do that? How do you know what normal is for these folks? You have to be out and see them consistently. You have to be talking with them in situations that are not corrective in nature. That doesn't mean you have to be buddies with them, but out and about just talking with them. So you know what normal looks like for that person. You need to understand, because there's some people that are just uptight. It is what it is. Everyone's got their different levels. So I love it about people. We're all different, and you got to have your A game on. There's literally no, again, there's no one manual that fits all, right? But so you need to understand where they're at and how they are. So that way, when you're in a good spot to be able to start having that conversation. Or that, hey, they're open now because this is their normal setting to be able to accept feedback. So in your day-to-day thing, so this is the best practice that I've had, and I started this many, many moons ago when I was first sergeant in the military on the Air Force. I had 654 at the highest point active duty members, and then all of their dependents I was responsible for too. So it was north of 3,000 people that I had to be aware of. But for the active duty members, I would go out to where they worked, and these are folks that worked on the flight line with the airplanes and everything across the board. I was out walking every day. This is back during BlackBerry time, so yes, I'm aging myself again. I had a mobile office with me, so I could do most of my work, basically on the go. And I did that. I'd walk around and be, hey, how's it going? And just, hey, how's things today? What's going on? And just ask them how they're doing. That was it. And to learn about them and to get those little bits and pieces. But it was done in a way that it was intentional. They knew when it was that I was going to be around on Tuesdays, certain times. I did that to be consistent. I wanted them to understand if they saw me, okay, he's here to talk this day. If they saw me and I wasn't, and it was an off time, I wanted them to understand, okay, something's different, and he's here to talk to somebody about something else. This isn't just a random conversation time. To help them understand, like, if they're coming up to me they want to talk about this, I'm like, yo, it's work time. I don't want to try to put anybody off that way. But I could just see how they were normally. It was great. But I could also eyeball somebody on the other side of the flight line who looked different, and I could beeline right to them and say, hey, is everything all right? How you doing today? And like, well, I was like, hey, let's go talk for a minute. Those type of things. But you've got to be out and see them. Yes.
when you can read people and see.
It's learned.
Yeah.
I didn't have it at the beginning. Oh, I was the least empathetic person you'll probably ever run into. No, it's not in my nature. I learned it for my job.
I'm astounded by how often I see a person in a because they were very good at the operation, but not necessarily people.
Yeah.
So those people can learn.
Absolutely. And that's it. Well, again, when you understand it's part of your job, and that's part what this is about. You have to be able to spend time and understand a big part of your job, the vast majority of time of your job, because the processes are usually figured out in your job, right? In your work, you kind of know what the processes are, these X, Y, and Z need to happen. You can put those like on autopilot because you can see when something needs to go left or right. And those are those normal day-to-day just corrections. This is the great unknown. These are the folks you've got to learn and understand how they are to help them get to whatever level they're going to get to. But it has to be a conscious choice by those folks who are good in operations, which was very good in operations. But like I said, when I had to go and do HR, it opened up a whole different world for me where I had to I can't just talk, process at this point. We needed to have conversations about feelings, which is fine. Open it up and just went after it. But I took it but again, seriously from I don't want to say it here. I'm always at least one step back to understand it's my job to help them figure out what the issue is, that we can figure out, okay, how can we either have an accommodation to work through this or help them understand that the stress that they're dealing with is because they're in a job mismatch and they need to make a decision to go work somewhere else, which I've found has been a key portion of a lot of individual stress is a job. And we're gonna talk about those job mismatches. So yeah, empathy can be learned. All right, see how we doing. Okay, cruising. All right, so on to page 11. Again, if you need any more inspirational stuff, I've got some extra words in there too. So this is where we're getting into the actual heart of the checklist, as I was telling you. So that entire first, big chunk that we chatted about was just the preface there to help you understand the backside of these things. Now we're getting into step one. And again, best known practice on this, prior to having a conversation with anyone, open the manual up, peruse through the manual, just as a refresher, starting with section 1. Okay, I'm not saying you have to read the preface every time. But like I said, if you're going 9 months from here and you're starting to run into problems again, you better go back and double check the preface in case you're missing something. All right, so section 1, coach the action, not the individual. The purpose of coaching is to address our employees' actions to either change or reinforce their behavior going forward. Coaching is not to make you feel better because you were upset by your employee. I've been on the receiving end of those people feeling better because they're yelling at me over something many, many times. That's not what you're there to do. Nor is it for you to applaud an individual's intelligence. It is one of the major attributes of your job as a professional to develop the next generation within your organization. If you're in a supervisory capacity, your job is to develop the people to take your job. That's what you're supposed to do. You want those individuals, 1, 2, all of them, to be able to step up and take your place at any time. Because if again, and this is the way I preached it to all of my supervisors, my managers, my general managers, my directors, everybody, I'm not going to promote you if you don't have somebody that can take your place. I don't want to go outside of the organization to have to fill your spot. So I will help you get you squared away how to train them. But if you want to get promoted, you need to get me somebody that can do your job just as well, if not better than you. Period, dot. Because it's your job. Because also, just for me on the risk management side, you decide to leave, I hope there's 3 behind you that can just step in and we're just having to have a quick set of interviews to figure out who that'll be. Okay? All right. For coaching to be effective, a supervisor must understand, absorb, and put the following principle in practice. You coach the action, not the individual. You're going to hear this a bunch, by the way. We're going to keep this is so key. Think about the times where you've struggled to get someone to understand, or you've been on the receiving end. Either we're spending time trying to figure out what's that person and trying to get in their head and figure these things out about what is it about them, instead of saying, listen, you just need to turn left instead of right. Why didn't you turn left? And let them give you an answer, which we're going to talk about all those things. We spend a lot of time trying to figure people out. We don't want to do that, right? Until it's time. Do not say you did what? How could you be so stupid? That was most of my adult life, by the way. Or you did what? That was very smart of you. That would be my brother on the flip side of that in the family. How can the employee stop being stupid or keep being smart? Those are measurements of mental ability. Are there any actions the employee can take from those statements? Is there anything they can do from that? You know, besides leaving no room for development, those comments will either put them on defensive, right? Or make them think there's no room for improvement. It leaves nothing to build upon. When you are having a coaching session, it's for development to help them perform better. So you want to talk about actions and things they can do and steps they can take once the conversation's over. Again, to go back to the football analogy, when you're coaching up the folks, there's like, listen, it's 2 steps up, cut to the left at a 45. Last time you did it, you did 1 step up and cut. Like, that's wrong. We need 2, then over. So I want you to go practice that and make sure that's done. Okay, put them in. Now they're just practicing 1, 2, go, 1, 2, go. Instead of saying, hey, man, it's pretty stupid of you to just do 1 step and go over, get out of here. Well, now what are they going to do? Now they're going to be worried about making 1 step or 2 instead of giving them, hey, this is exactly what you need to do to be successful. Okay? All right. So what if you were to say you did what? Do you realize the ramification of that action? Or you did what? That was a fantastic thing to do. In each instance, you now can speak to how the employee's actions affected the situation. Together, you can analyze what led them to that decision. There's no judgment of the individual's worth, just commentary on the decision-making process. You just want to figure out why they went right instead of left. That's it. Whatever that step was. This is the foundation of effective coaching. We're always going to coach the action, not the individual. So in your experience, and you've seen, have you seen folks, they spend most of their time on actions, or are they spending time trying to figure out the individual? Just curious. Have you even put any thought to it before?
I go more by their ad.
Okay, that's good. Good. You're in the kitchen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got safety and a lot of stuff that you got to worry about. Yeah. How about everybody else? You ever put any thought into it about how some of the folks are spending their time? Okay. Yeah. It tends to be where it's at. It tends to be they start with the person and then they eventually get to the action. We want to flip that on its head. That's what we're going to be working on. All right. Again, more inspiration if you need it. Section 2. Time is of the essence. A second. All right. So effective coaching is conducted in as close to real time as possible. In as close to real time as possible. Again, you want to address concerns, findings as soon as you can too. Prevent the individual from making further mistakes. Keep the individual performing at a high level. And immediacy signals importance to staff. Now, I'll give you an example of where even and I was, mid-level manager at this point, I was having an annual review, which, by the way, I don't coach my clients to do annual reviews. We do quarterly reviews. Waiting a whole year to talk to somebody is an awful long time to give them feedback. So we do quarterlies. But in case, this was an annual, and starts talking to me, and then he mentions something about the fact there was this word that I was using, which wasn't crass or anything. It was just something they're used to in that area, and it was bothering. It was annoying the folks that worked for me. I'm like, oh, okay. And how long has this been going on? They're like, oh yeah, they told me like 4 months ago. Okay, so we kind of stopped my review there for a second, and I did some coaching up to my boss. I was like, so for 4 months, you let me keep saying this, slightly annoying my team to the point to where they had to come to you, and then you just continue to let this go on and didn't pull me to the side and say, yo, there's this thing, don't do the thing because of this. He's like, well, and this is what he said, I needed to make sure that I had something to talk to you about of significance, which it wasn't, on your annual review to be able to show his boss. Okay? Now, anybody that's worked in like hierarchy organizations like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so that, I was like, that's you, that's a you problem. Like, that's me. So anyways, I had to go back. I pulled my team together real quick. I was like, yo, let's get together. So I understand that this word, I said word, y'all don't like. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. I was like, okay, it's gone. Why didn't you tell me? They're like, and they went through the reasons and everything, because why do you think they didn't tell me? They're worried about getting fired, right? Like, it's there. It literally lives there. Even though I had a great relationship with these folks, because the next question I asked was like, okay, where are the memes? Because they are a meme crew. They like to be able to have like pictures. So they broke out their email, and they were superimposing my face on random things and having me say it. And they were great. They did a good job with it. I was laughing. But I lost 4 months of explicitly productive time with my team because my boss waited instead of just saying it quicker. So again, time is of the essence. We want you saying these things as quickly as possible. Now remember, the purpose of coaching is to address our employees' actions to either change or reinforce their behavior going forward. Hesitating to address the situation in a timely manner will erode the perceived value of your message. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the beginning there, or the 3 points. So we want to prevent the individual from making further mistakes, or if we want to say something that they're doing something well, we want them to continue doing the good thing. Right? This isn't just for like the negative stuff. If someone's doing something great, like immediately you see it, again, on the kitchen, there's someone that's an average performer and all of a sudden you see like they step it up. You want to get over and say, yo, I like the way you did that. That was great. Keep that, right? You want to hit them quick on that, right? Yeah, because you're just trying to build them back up. But in an office setting, anywhere, it's the same thing. Keep the individual performing at a high level, right? So if they had a couple issues that they're coming down a peg, you want to correct that and get them back up to high level performance. Also, you know what I mean? People may notice that too. You know, they're going to notice where the immediacy signals of importance to staff. If you see something that's out of line, you want to say it immediately. Everyone else notices, and guess what? They're like, okay, we can't do that thing. We shouldn't do that thing. So immediacy. And the reason we wait, on top of having to have something for your, again, your annual review to show your boss that you're doing a job, what do you think the other reason is? I already addressed it one time. Because it's icky. Get that ick. Like, I don't want to have this conversation to talk to you about this or whatever it is. That's why. And the next, again, sometimes later, never, becomes never do it now. The next line, this one is actually meant to be supportive. Heavy words left unsaid, right? They don't get lighter over time. They get heavier. If you need to talk to someone, just talk to them. And we're going to show you how to do it and have it in a professional way, but just talk with them. No one, okay. Very few, I always mess that one up. Very few people wake up and say, today I'm going to be a terrible employee. Yeah, almost no one says that. Just say words to them, help them perform better. Okay? No wait. All right, so it is 10 o'clock now. We'll break now. So let's do 10:15. Give you a little time to stretch your legs, get some water, etc. And then 10:15 we'll start up again.
Did you graduate from Brian?
I did. Okay. I was 97. Which, Paul going, yeah, I know Paul. Yep. Yep. Played a lot of open gym basketball with him. So, yeah. It's pretty much. No, neither do I. My back does not allow me to do those things. So, okay. Yeah, no, it's just, yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you're within basically a 6-year span, you pretty much know everybody in those areas there. So, yeah.
Yeah, like, what it was like, all the, like, central policy there. So, there were tons of different people that I don't know. So, that's the one that's like.
All right. Let's get back into it, folks. You're just off camera. No, no worries. So, all right, let's get back into it. We're on page 15. On to section 3. So we're going to praise in public and correct in private. I think everyone's heard that about 1 billion times, right? We're still going to go through it because we still have to tell people that. The purpose of coaching is to address our employees' actions to either change or reinforce their behavior going forward. Sound familiar? Said it a few times. That's what we're there to do, just change behavior going forward. Even though you are focusing on actions, you're still dealing with people. The intervention method you use will directly affect the effectiveness of the coaching session as well as the relationship between you and your employees. Do your best to praise desirable actions in public. You want to focus on actions you want to reinforce within the larger organization. That does not have to be at an official function. We can come back to that. Nor a company-wide email. A quick stop by their work area to thank them is typically more than enough. Now, however, this has been the issue though. And when you're in a senior position and you're going to have a company-wide event or you want to send something out, there's this tendency to want to recognize people in front of everyone, right? Which is cool. You want to do that. But don't wait. You can do it both. You can stop by the office and say, yo, that was some great work you did there on that thing. That was super. And then 2 months later, hey, come up here a second. I want to recognize you for the great thing that you can recognize it more than once. It's okay. I mean, that's a good thing. But don't wait. Especially considering you want, there's reasons here. We talked about in the previous, time is of the essence. If you did something that was awesome, which I'm sure you do consistently, you want to hear about. Sorry while you're drinking there. I know. Sorry. I try to target people sometimes. Anyways, but if as you did something awesome, and I wait 2 months to tell you, was it really awesome? Like that's what I want you to measure these things by, and help again if you are in the leadership position, let that one sink in. And if you happen to be in the leadership, there, and you can help your boss understand the difference between the two and why they're both equally important, i.e., say it immediately and then to make sure you address it in front of everyone. Help them with that. That's been my job for a very long time, helping folks to understand you can say nice things more than once. It's okay. On the flip side of that, we don't beat people up consistently. We say words because there's a corrective nature. We'll get into that. All right. So here's all the goodness that this method cultivates by stopping by and seeing them. The employee feels good. And the boss stopped by and said, hey, that was some good stuff you did right there. That thing you did in that way, that was great. Because the vast majority of conversations, and it's the way it is because you are in that leadership position as the boss, are corrective in nature. Not like getting on them, but just little course corrections to help people move because you have got new information you got to share with the team, or you see something, you have a little insight to help them. They're typically corrective. That's why their supervisors are there. So when you have the opportunity to come in and just say, yo, that was good, you do that, right? Employees like that. Others take note and commend the employee. And the boss took time to come and say, that was great. Other folks are going to notice that and say, hey, you did something good. Cool. What'd you do there? want to learn more about it. Others are now aware of the preferred behavior. That's the other one. You're saying it in real time so that you said this is the way that we'd like this to be. There's deeper conversations about the training and everything else needs to be updated to reflect that. That's a separate thing, but let's just assume this is the way it's supposed to be done and they're the first time. Now everybody knows this is what it looks like to be successful and do this thing. Everybody can kind of eyeball it. And you have deepened your relationship with the employees. Like I said, if your conversations, and just by their very nature as a supervisor, they're corrective in nature. You just what you're doing. But if you're also able to come in there and celebrate excellent work, that's a connection that every single employee you just get. It feels good every time you have that. That's a little dopamine hit. We all like that. So note, praising in public should only be used for those instances where a reasonable person, they do still exist, they're out there, trust me, would consider outstanding or excellent work. An example would be praising someone who shows up to work on time after consistently arriving late. You don't want to be like, yo, Steve, hey, finally got in. Finally got into work on time. It's been 3 weeks. You've been late every day in front of everyone. Like, that's just not cool. That's not cool in any way, shape, or form. In this instance, it's best to offer recognition, encouragement in private. Right? They will most definitely appreciate your candor, and the reinforcement will be more effective. You pull them in the office and just, if this is something you've talked to them about, just, yo, hey, I see you're making an effort the last 2 days. You've been in early, or you got here. You're ready to go as soon as your shift starts. That's great. Keep that up. You're doing good work. Just that little simple bit goes a long way. We correct undesirable actions in private for a remarkably simple reason: ego. When you attempt to coach an individual in public, you activate their fight or flight response, which hinders any attempt at effective communication. You cannot change behavior if the person starts defensively posturing or retreats into a shell. That's why we pull them somewhere else to have that conversation. We still have to have, right? We still have to have the coaching conversation if they're doing something that needs to be addressed, like they went left instead of right, or vice versa. You pull them in privately, so now you're not dealing with two threats to themselves. One is just for their, we made correction on their work. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is getting hit. But if you're now saying it in front of everybody, now there's another piece. Their ego is getting bruised, so they're getting double dosed with juice at this point, because now they've got a hierarchy that. There's hierarchies within workplaces and things like that they've got to defend in the pecking order. Just is what it is. So if you call them out in front of everybody, they're worried about getting knocked down further on that piece. So they're ready to, like I said, run away or throw hands. We want to just not that be a thing. Just talk about the action. Now, when you coach in private, when you coach in a private setting, the fight or flight response will be muted. It's still there, but it'll be muted, providing you the avenue to coach the undesirable actions. Additionally, we're on page 16. Additionally, you are demonstrating a level of respect for the individual by not addressing the issue in front of other employees. So the phrase that I use on all this from a supervisory manner, when you are conducting yourself, you always want to be extending professional courtesy to any stakeholder. The phrase is, that's that long phrase, but it's professional courtesy. You should always act in a manner that extends professional courtesy to whoever you're talking to. You should always expect to receive that back. And that goes to all stakeholders. So the coaching I have for all of my employees when I have them, didn't matter if you were frontline, if you were back on the dish, if you were back in the dish pit, if you were in our production facility, you were in the office. Whoever you're talking to, you will extend professional courtesy at all times. That's the standard. If you do not do that, we're going to have a conversation about it. And I will show you where you are not professionally courteous. But it's all stakeholders. So that includes our vendors. That includes anybody who exists that they come in contact with. Okay? And it's your right within your organizations to set that standard. You can say, this is how we behave here. This is our culture. Okay? And yes, it did take a while to cull some folks out once I put that in place. It happens. There's turnover that occurs. However, on the flip side of that, when professional courtesy is the norm, people are more apt to speak up. That's what I want. I want words being said. So they know they can say something, they're not going to get harassed back, or people don't think it's attacking because I'm saying, yo, about the thing here, that. They don't think they're being attacked. It's professional courtesy. Hey, I see you might be making a mistake. I'm concerned. That's how they started taking it. So again, professional courtesy. Extend professional courtesy to all stakeholders. That covers everyone. All right, so note, there is a time and a place for shock and awe. If you see unsafe or severely unprofessional behavior, feel free to address the action swiftly and publicly, then follow up in private. And use your best judgment and be sure to do it sparingly. So with this, within any organization I've ever been associated with, there is a standing rule that all employees will maintain 1 foot on a company approved or organization approved horizontal surface at all times. 1 foot horizontal, again, or company approved horizontal surface at all times. No running or jumping. That's what that means, right? So the way this works is within, again, kitchens, you guys have stuff that are up on some shelves, right? We provide step ladders and step stools for everyone. We have different sizes depending on the heavy weight of what you're doing, depending where you have to get to. So we train everybody on how to do it, how to inspect the actual step ladder so they're safe, and to go through that process. And it never ceased to amaze me. I would be going through, again, just use my last place, going through the production facility that we had, and I was off to, I can't remember who I was going to talk to at this time, but let's just say it was the boss for fun. I was going to go talk to the boss. He was there for a reason. I had my binder, which I always had my binder. In my binder, I had the training plan and all of our training steps. So at any point, I could do some stuff, right? And it never ceased to me. I would come in and I would see somebody jumping up to kind of grab something from a shelf that just over here. My third lung would activate. I would say their name, and I'm not going to yell here, but I would yell. I'm not picking you out, you're in front of me. You stop what you're doing right now. Take my stuff and I'd place it down. I'd walk over and we'd have a conversation. I'd be like, okay. So you are aware, I know you've been here for a while because I knew them. I pretty much knew everybody at work. You've had this conversation. You've been trained on how it's supposed to happen here, correct? Yes. You know you're supposed to be able to get, a company approved, and I use that phrase, horizontal surface, to be able to get up there. Yes, I know, get a step ladder, I'll go get it. It's like, nope. So here's the deal. I am 100% certain you have not been trained correctly on this because I saw you not doing it. So we're going to go through and I'm going to retrain you right now. And I've been late to meetings with multiple, like the boss, and again, the boss, the ownership group, you name it, vendors, because I'm going to take care of this right now and just have this. And folks knew that I was giving time up for this. So we go through and I train like, all right, so you guys get this from here. Let's go on over. We'd walk over to closet, whichever closet it was. We even had our closets numbered in each section within the closet where stuff went. All right, section 1 has got the ladder we're going to use in this area. Cool, let's check it out. Train them how to go through that. Go through, let's go up, grab the thing, blah, 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 right? Go through all the steps. It's now down on the cart. We're going to take the ladder back, put it back where it goes, because you always put stuff back where you got it from, exactly where it goes, right? And then we're done. And then I say, okay, do you feel like you are fully trained now? Yes. Okay, so you're not going to have this happen again, correct? No, I'm good. All right. I do have to talk to your boss. I said, let you know, I'm going to talk to your boss about this to let him know we had a conversation. Okay, all right. So, hey, get back to work. Go do your thing. But I wasn't done. Then I would walk over to everybody else who was around there and I'd be like, that was your fault, right? Well, that was your fault. And I'd go to everybody. That individual felt free to jump and do this here, and nobody else said a word. I'm the only one that said anything. So that means it was an accepted behavior with this group. Does anybody have any questions about what the appropriate thing to do here is? And they're like, no, okay, good. Just want to make sure everybody's good. And typically the conversation with the boss went like this, like, yo, had to train somebody on such and such on how to use the ladder because they were jumping. Oh, and they knew I wasn't upset or anything. I was like, this is a training piece that had to happen. And the boss, but okay, just let you know. That was the extent of that conversation because me and that manager, we used to be those folks. And I used to jump too. It was a thing. But, end of the day, and this is the piece why I say it's safety or unacceptable, unprofessional behavior. I would much rather have an individual think I'm a jerk because I basically, I'm not saying embarrass them, but it's their choice if they want to be embarrassed while getting trained in front of everyone. And they have, but both their ankles work than them to think I'm a cool guy and walking around in a brace. Like, I'd much rather, I'm okay with that. I slept really great that night. Okay, but that's when you do it. And do it sparingly. So when it happens, everyone realizes something just happened. Okay, does that make sense? Now with that, you have to have that training in place. So we had that in the training manual. There will always remain 1 foot on a company approved horizontal surface at all times. Like we specifically had that. So that way I could go back to that training step. We're going to talk about more of that here in a little bit. But again, safety, it's much more important than the ego, right? I'd much rather have somebody a bruised ego than a snapped ankle. All right, let's see. On to section 4, inching closer to actually talking about having the conversation here, folks. Getting there. Event versus developmental coaching. So event coaching is a specific instance where an individual took an action outside their expected behavior profile requiring correction or reinforcement. How do we know if someone has taken action outside of their expected behavior profile? How would we know that? What has to take place for us to know if something's different? It's okay, that's right, it's chewy for a reason, but those are specific words that we want to have in there. You're out with the folks every day, right? But you also know what they're supposed to be doing. You know what level of training they're supposed to be doing. You understand how they're supposed to be acting, things of that nature, right? So you know that. So when you identify something that is not in line with the process they've been trained to, that would be outside of the expected behavior profile. If you see them acting in a way that is not professional or whatever it needs to be, that's outside of the expected behavior profile, right? You're looking for something that's different. On the other side of that, if you're watching them, like we talked earlier, where the individual is typically, they're rolling around, they're about a 6 out of 10, and all of a sudden you see them performing at an 8 out of 10, that's different than their expected behavior profile. Because if you again, gotta have some 5s and 6s on the team. It's just the nature of the beast, and that's okay. Some people, that's where they want to be at. As long as I can count on them, I'll take 5s and 6s all day. It's fine. But if you see them bump up to an 8 for whatever reason, that's outside the expected behavior profile. We want to reinforce that, but we need to be able to identify it, what those expectations are. So that's what that sentence means, all right? So we're going to use this type of coaching to address specific instances when continuation of substandard behavior is unacceptable, or continuation of excellent behavior is desirable. Now, when something abnormal happens, you must act quickly to stop this new behavior from becoming a habit, or reinforce the behavior so it becomes a new expected performance level. Just like I was saying. That's why you go quickly. Regardless, event coaching is a fact-based, targeted method focusing on a specific topic. The methods and procedures for event coaching are covered in section 6. So we have a whole section on it. Any questions on event? One thing that we see that they did incorrectly or they did great. We gotta jump on it. Developmental coaching. It's a fact-based, data-driven process to evaluate the employee's current level of expertise to create a strategy for further professional growth. This is what people think is mentoring at times. And this is not mentoring. This is you're looking at their individual development plan if you have one, the overall training manual you have or whatever, and you're doing a delta analysis. You're looking at the difference to what more training or more experience they need, and you're building a plan to get them to where you want them to be. And we're going to talk about that in depth here, but this type of coaching has a larger breadth and depth and scope where the supervisor and employee work together to assess the individual's professional maturation, then build a growth plan. The methods and procedures for developmental coaching are covered in section 7. Now remember, this is your job. Like, I just want to repeat that. When we're talking about developmental this is, if you're a supervisor, this is your job. It's a big part of it. All right, now, this is another one, this isn't glossed over. Part of what you're going to be doing here when you get this, before we move on, I just want to talk about this here, is I got trust the process, trust yourself on here. In order, before you can even use this book, right, this manual, you just can't jump in and start using this with folks. And you have to do a self-analysis, self-evaluation of your relationship with your folks. Like, so you may have to put in 6 months of work, 3 months of work, or whatever it is in your team, to where when you go out and talk to them, they understand you're just having a conversation and it's cool. Like, they are where your folks are comfortable around you, right? And you need to be self-aware about that. Because if all your conversations are, and I don't want to say adversarial, but if you go in your team and they're constantly on edge around you, that's a you thing. You got to figure that out. And it's going to take a while to build that trust up, because in order to get them out of the fight or flight response, that trust has to be there. Does that make sense, everyone? Now, I'm not saying y'all, it's just, when you talk to other people, you guys are great. Your teams love you and where you're at, but right? But I need you, but just take that to heart when you're when you're looking at your folks, okay? If you go and they're constantly on edge around you, that's something you need to spend some time reflecting on. All right, even in the military, right? And I was one of the senior leaders with my group of folks. And I was the guy that fired people. That was part of my job, was letting people go, sending them back to wherever they came from. Thank you for your service. Your service is done. I was constantly aware if people were uptight around me and if I had to adjust, even in the military. Right? It took me a while to figure that out. But once I got there, they knew it was basically, it's a time for conversation, just kind of we're all folks working here. And then we turned it on when we had to turn it on for the other piece. But there was always a level of professional courtesy being extended across the board. That's what I'm just saying. There's a balance you got to get to, okay? Because
The biggest obstacle I have with that is the title.
Okay.
I put my pants on, they move
Mhm.
you.
They call you Rachel?
Come talk to me.
do they call you Rachel?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the best you can do. Now, the other piece, though, just remember we were talking about that Maslow's hierarchy of needs piece. That's where you need to spend time with them, where it's just more conversations with them so they understand as you're talking, like, and find ways to use that language that, I want you to do this because I want to make sure that you can provide for your family. These are the things I worry about every day. And I use those phrases when I talk to folks. I'm like, with my teams, like, I want to make sure that you're here for the long term and you're as successful as possible, because I know this is paying the rent for you. I know this is providing food. So if we have to have a conversation about, I need you to do this, it's because I want to help you to be able to do that in the future. And I'd have those one-on-one conversations constantly. It just takes a little while.
I just see the difference between when I was moving out.
Yeah. Yep.
How.
Oh yeah, welcome to they. That's actually the phrase that I use. So once you get into supervisor management world, you are now part of they. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't understand what it is to be here. They don't listen to me. It's always they. I'm like, oh, I'm over here now. I'm in the they, because I started hearing that pretty young. I was like, oh, this is what this is like. Woof. Okay, we got to work on that. The book club? Yeah. And that's the thing. It's okay. And it's okay. It's just from a lack of understanding. It's your job is to try to bridge that gap and say everyone's got a job here. So when I was in the military, one of my jobs was they sent me around to basically fix organizations. Like, that was my job for like my last 7 years. I landed in this one place and I sat and I was the youngest normally. I got promoted rather quickly. So I landed in this place and I had folks that were 7 to 8 years older than me, typically on average, that worked for me. And I come in and land, I was like, listen, uniform top would come off so the stripes would go somewhere else. I said, listen, we all work here. I just got a different job. My job is to, and this is, by the way, this is important for you guys. My job is to organize, train, and equip you to be successful. To organize, train, and equip. That's my job. Your job is to let me know what you need to go and execute. Between those, that organize, train, and equip. And it needs to be talked about in those 3 ways. Don't come to me like, I think I need this. Wrong answer. In order for me to effectively do this, I need to have another supervisor on the floor. Okay, I got to change the organizational structure at that point. I need to get another asset, another FTE to be able to fit a supervisor, because they'd explain it to me. Organize, train, and equip. But we've just had that conversation. And there might be something for you to say that too. Like, this is my job, is just to make sure that all these things are running so that tomorrow we all have jobs. I've explained it that way too. Everybody's a little different, but end of the day, the more they understand it's when you're talking about them and you're just talking about the process, your job is to talk to them about the process. That's all you're doing. So, like I said, I've dealt, and a lot of my staff are in that same age and the same demographic and stuff like that too. And it just takes time, but just keep hitting them with it, especially if you're coming from a place of goodness. Okay. All right. So preparation, section 5. That's a good question. That's a really good question, because we have a lot of folks that are there. Also, with the folks here as well, the younger folks that I'm dealing with, we're having to train people what professional courtesy even means. You know, and that's okay. Someone's got to do it. It just happens to fall on us. That's our job now. That's fine. It's just part of the job. You know, we just adjust our thing. So, all right, section 5, preparation. Proper preparation is the hallmark of a professional supervisor. You can get rid of supervisor. And, I mean, it's there because we're talking about that, but proper preparation is the hallmark of a professional. That is what makes someone a professional, is proper preparation. So you can come in and do your work. Right? Now, in case of a supervisor, and again, it is vital to the coaching process. Preparation is not difficult, but many fail to properly do it. Why? Because it involves planning and work outside of our daily workload. However, just like every part of your job, yes, it is part of your job as a supervisor. It gets easier the more you do it. Also, if it happens to be an ick conversation, nobody likes to dive into ick. It's just, I don't want to do this. So they just want to get the conversation over with. You can't speed this thing. You got to do the steps. And this is the other part where anybody who's been involved in operations before, has spent time in there, needs to understand there's a certain number of actions and steps that has to take place in any given process. You can skip them. You're still going to have to do them at some point somewhere. You might push it off 2 months and still have to go through the process and have to go do it. And chances are it's going to take longer and be more expensive. Follow the process early, less expensive and easier over here. Go through the steps. All right, so the preparation steps for each type of coaching are, again, this is for each type. They're all the same. You're going to gather all relevant facts and data. You're going to confirm the date, time, and location for your coaching session. You're going to create an agenda to keep you on track. And you're going to identify the objective and preferred outcomes. There may be multiple, right? So we're going to talk about them now. So preparing for coaching. So step 1, we are going to gather all the relevant facts and data. Examples include specific process or process step, direction given by leadership, or behavior outlined in the employee handbook. So I'm pausing there for a very good reason. If you are going to ask someone why they turn left instead of right, you need to be able to talk about that specific action in training, in direction by leadership, in your handbook, et cetera, et cetera. There needs to be somewhere where they were trained on it. If you are talking to someone and it's not identified in training anywhere, guess whose fault that is? That's us problem. Organize, train, and equip. Train. Okay? So you need to make sure that you have that specific piece outlined. I paused and went quiet for a very good reason. I want to make sure that sank in. Okay. All right. Because some of you in past places have been like, oh crap, that's a lot of work. Yeah, it is. It is. But get there. Okay. But also remember, if you're talking to your folks, right, and you said, why did you go left instead of right? And they say, well, because the step, here I was trained to do X, Y, and Z. And you look at the training and it actually says that. You're like, oh crap. This process was updated 3 months ago. We never updated the training. Guess who gets a free pass? That person does. And because you identified it, you can now fix it. And guess what that person is going to tell everybody else? Yeah, actually, I told them it was in the training and they're updating the training. Guess who is awesome? You guys are. Because you listen to them. That's why we do it. It's a feedback function on your training. That's what these coaching sessions are. It's literally feedback function. One, also on your hiring. There's other pieces. Or you can run down the list, but it's a feedback function. It's giving you information. All right. Please note, this did not say opinions or feelings of those involved. Facts and data. Your job is to figure out who, what, when, where, and how. The employee will provide the why. Why them and not you? You are not a mind reader. You have absolutely no idea why they took the action they did. So do not try to figure it out. And I mean that. Don't spend any time trying to figure it out. Do your detective work, get all the who, what, when, where, and how. And then when you sit them down, they're going to give you the why. You'll see that. And I know that's tough for folks because they want to try to figure out what they did. You're just wasting energy. You need that data point before then you can activate your neo-mammalian brain. Once you get that data point from them and they explain why, then you can get to work and try to figure stuff out together. But don't waste your time. It will keep you unbiased. That's the main reason. How many of y'all have had multiple conversations in your head about how the conversation's going to go, and then when the conversation went, it was completely different, right? So don't do that, right? You're all upset at them, and it ended up being something benign. You're like, oh, okay then, right? You got in fight or flight for no good reason. Don't do that to yourself. Again, it's unbiased, but also open to hearing what they have to say. Because if you're coming in ready to go, guess whose neo-mammalian brain isn't activated? You're in fight or flight. You're not wanting what they have to say. So you're going to communicate and confirm the date, time, and location for the coaching session. You need a quiet space, free from distraction, the best of your abilities, so the two of you can focus. A private office would be preferable, but depending on the circumstances, any private area will suffice. You need the employee to confirm, verbal or written, to the specifics surrounding the coaching session. If you fail to get confirmation and they do not show up, that is your fault. You can't just send an email and then sit back and wait for them to come. You need to get feedback that they understand this is now where they're supposed to report for work during this time. Because that's what you're doing. You're saying your duty location just shifted to my office. And they need to understand that and agree to that. Because guess what if they don't agree to that? They quit. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's what is happening here. You're saying, this is where I need you to report for duty. That's what's happening. All right, you're going to create, so I know that sounds pretty like harsh on that, but that's literally what you're doing at that point. So you want them to confirm that they understand that they're not doing their regular job. Now their job is to come talk. Create an agenda to keep you on track. If I was teaching this, like, and we were in college, this is me like foot stomping and like kicking the lectern, the podium. This would be on the test. Create an agenda. Always have an agenda. Every single time. I don't care if it's on a sticky note, put it on a napkin. I don't care. Write down an agenda. It is like Linus in your safety blanket, security blanket. Okay? When you start your coaching session, you will have no idea how it will go. What if when you finish describing the who, what, when, where, and how of the situation, the employee says, I know I shouldn't have said it, but my dog died that morning and I was an emotional wreck. Now, being the amazing supervisors you all are, okay, you're going to break out your emotional intelligence and empathize with the employee to address their significant emotional event. You're going to take your agenda and just go like this. Oh my God, was this no? And just talk to, because this is something you want to talk with them about. That's a people. You're a people, and I want to make sure that we're taking care of this piece. And you get through that. You talk to them, and then when that part's done, okay, we're back at it again, because you've got a new data point, right? So you've been upset with, remember if you had been chewing through all this and trying to figure out they don't care about their work, they got blah, 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 and then they tell you their dog died. Now you have the data point that you can start piecing together. So in this case, before we move on, dog died, right? And they did whatever. Your coaching to them would be in the next time something like this happens where you have an significant emotional event, tell me, and we can have a conversation about your workload. Shift you into something where you maybe don't have to deal with people or whatever, because that is something, we want to be able to help you with that, right? Because that's the action you want to fix. They didn't tell you, which then led to the next problem. So you got down to the root cause here is that, hey, just tell me what's going on in your life, and if I can help, I want to be able to help. And with that, we're also going to talk about this other piece. We don't do this too, but first things first, that was your first error. Fill me in, okay? All right. Yeah.
It's not really a question, it's just something to knowledge. So do you ever see in that kind of situation, not necessarily podcasting, but where like an employee will take advantage of like someone like you being like supportive and, oh, my dog died this week, and then the following week, oh, my grandma died.
Mm-hmm.
How would you address that?
So, and that's, so if that gets, and this has happened, it's not my first rodeo on that for sure. So I always extend benefit of the doubt, and we talk about it. What we've done right off the bat, though, is said, listen, you need to let me know if this is happening. We're going to adjust for this. And the second time occurs, right? Okay, we're going to adjust again because, we're people here. We want to make sure you're good. 3 times makes a trend, right? And now we're getting to the point where like, listen, and they say someone else passed away. I was like, how many people do you have left in your life here? And I said it in a nice way, obviously, but I want to be clear because right now you're not able to do the work that we were hired you for. And if you are not able to perform at this level, and it's no fault, people have multiple things going on in their lives all the time. They have to shift jobs. That's why I tell them, like, if you need to shift work, we can find you another position, or we can help you figure something out. But I need you to be able to do these things. I understand you've had X, Y, and Z. Got it. But we need this part here because, and that's where I go with them. I'm very just clear with them on it. It's like, I got you all day up until a trend. Now we got to talk, because if you can't meet the basics of the job as outlined and specifically filled out in your job description, right? Because everyone's got super cool job descriptions written out clearly. And if they can't do that, I've negotiated with people and I've demoted them down. Said, listen, I'm just going to put you down here out of supervisor because you have too much stuff going on at home and you can't have your head right. But you're still great here. I can offer your position here, so now you're not a supervisor. Yeah, I'll take that. Cool. Boom. Off they go. Hire a new, basically have some interviews and promote somebody else up to supervisor. Or they decide they don't want to work there anymore because they know this. They know the expectation is written, and I'm going to hold them to it. That's it. It's not cold. It's not mean. It's just, I got bills to pay too. We all do. And if you can't, does that make sense? Yeah. So, and just be clear with them. Just be straight with folks. You'd be surprised how quickly that family members come back to life where they don't get sick anymore when you're very clear on that. But, or on the flip side of that, they decide that, maybe I'm not a right fit here because it's a job mismatch. That's where I want all of you to just, I use that word on here, spend some time researching, understand exactly what that means, because that's where you see a lot, and that has been my experience, had a lot of people where they have struggled. They've been great folks, had all the attributes you wanted to be, and they were in a position that just was a job mismatch for their time and place, where their headspace was at. So we either put them in a different spot, or they self-selected and went and found another place to work. So, all right. So once you talk with them and made sure they can continue, you're going to use that agenda. You're going right back to it. Again, it's your roadmap. That's why you put it together. So no matter when you decided to take a break, hop right back on there and keep on going. Because again, you have to address that action that they took. All right. And number 4, you're going to identify the objective and preferred outcomes. This is key. Your job is not to go in and say words. Is get results and have the employee agree to the preferred outcome. If you do not specifically spell out your objective, you will have a challenging time knowing when to close the meeting. I've been in many meetings where my boss didn't realize that we were good and they just kept talking. I'm like, yo, I got work to do. Like you got to remember, when you have that person in there, what are they not doing? Their job. So they're behind. So just understand, we need to get in here. We're going to run through this thing, be good at this point, then you're done. So taking time to prepare will help you take full advantage and make the most of your coaching sessions. Everybody go to the preparation? All right, finally, we're into coaching. Almost 2 hours in, okay? So event coaching, all right. So with this, just as a heads up for you guys know, we don't do any practice coaching in here. That's something that we're gonna talk about at the end, where we need you to set aside time to find somebody you trust to just practice going through the motions some of these with. Okay, give it a few times to practice and then bring someone in. Don't do dry runs on people with this. Find somebody to practice with, okay? All right, so event coaching. Specific instance where an individual took an action outside their expected behavior profile requiring correction or reinforcement. So examples of correction and reinforcement steps are illustrated below. And note, after preparing for the coaching session, so right there, that's what I was telling, when you're reading through this, it tells you, hey, you prepared, right? Yes. Oh, wait, no, just go back and go do it. It's fine. All right. Second 5, use the following steps. So we're going to start with event coaching for correction. So you're going to arrive at the session location 5 to 10 minutes early to prepare the area to ensure that your session will be private and free from interruptions. Things to consider. Seating for each of you. Silence all phones. Close any blinds, right? Especially if in office with a window, you got people that, what's going on in there, right? Rubbernecking a little bit, right? What's going on in here, right? You know, close those blinds. You're going to turn off your computer monitors. You don't want, the last thing you want to do when you're having a conversation with somebody that is on the other side is a significant emotional event, You've got mail. You know, turn it off. Just no emails popping up, none of that stuff. Okay, focused on them. You want to have your agenda printed with paper and a pen for notes. We always do an agenda, right? Of course, that's in preparation. After you've both taken your seats, you're going to state the reason for the meeting. You do this to ensure the employee understands the exact reason they are being coached. I have lost count the number of times an employee was shocked the reason they were there. Like, as example, we're meeting to discuss your outburst at the customer service desk this morning. This is an example. Oh, we're for real? Yes, for real. I told you we're talking about it, and we're talking about it. Oh man, okay. Like, I meant it when I said it. And some folks, you may just prepare yourselves. You may be the first supervisors that are holding them accountable. They're not used to it. I know I wasn't when that happened. But that's, if you follow this, you're being fair and transparent with them too. I didn't mean to trigger. Is that a trigger? No PTSD, right? I know. Okay. Yeah, I know. I know. Again, trust me. The bruises that I have have all been turned into, like, ink on this paper. Trust me. Same reasons. So again, though, but that's everyone else's fault. That's where I've always put this here. That's everyone before you who didn't have enough professional courtesy to treat people in a professional manner. That's where I've always gone with that. Because if you tell someone we're talking about this, they should extend that courtesy back to you if you treated them professionally, that, oh, we're actually going to talk about that. Okay, so we come in and we're talking about it. All right? So let the employee know they will have the opportunity to speak, but you want to lay out the facts you have gathered about the event first. So first I'll share what I have learned about the events leading up to the outburst. Then I would like to get your description of the events. Please let me talk. I promise you have plenty of opportunity to share. I've used that phrase a lot. Just let me talk. Just let me talk, and then you get to say all sorts of words. Like, cool, all right. And you'll see them, like, right? They're fidgety, right? Because they want to say the words, but just say, I'm sorry if I'm really triggering stuff here. I apologize. It's always a couple whenever I get to this point, okay? But just be like, I got you, but we're gonna be there, okay? And this is an opportune time. I don't have it in here. Be like, hey, I want to talk about this for the next time this occurs, right? This would be a place where you'd want to fit that in. And by the way, I don't put that in the examples here because I had it in previous versions, like 5 and 6, and it came off robotic because people were practicing it. The next time this occurred, it didn't come off right? So you want to try to find a way to slip it in there. So you can share the facts you've gathered and then ask the employee to confirm, amend, or deny the information. So example, when I talked with your coworker, Sarah, she said the customer came in and was extremely frustrated with her invoice. Sarah said the customer cursed at you, then threw the bill at you. It was at this point you raised your voice and started yelling at the customer. Shortly thereafter, Michael came from his office and told you to walk away, which you did. Did I miss anything? No. Be professional. I have to put these notes in here, just a reminder for y'all, because these are, it's like with anything, warnings, cautions, and notes and safety things and manuals, because people have run into problems. That's what this note's for. Be professional and control your emotions. Do not let any tone of condescension color your speech. Same for your mannerisms. Be empathetic. On the other side of your conversation, somebody's worried about getting fired, not being able to eat. Remember that. Okay? Just be empathetic. So you're going to let them talk, then listen and respond by restating what they said. Right? Active listening. That's what we're doing at this point. This way, you are ensuring what they think they are saying is what you are hearing. Continue this until you both feel you have a shared understanding of the situation. Yeah, that customer was waiting at the door for us to open so she could rip into us. We even opened early so she wouldn't be standing outside in the cold. She started yelling, saying we messed up her bill and took too much money out of her account. There were numerous F-bombs scattered throughout her rant. I kept asking her to calm down, and I kept my cool, up until the point she threw her bill at me. I just snapped after that and started yelling back. That was when Michael came out and told me to leave. That woman is crazy. Okay? No. Now, there is a chance the person will not want to talk at first. The possibility that they won't want to say anything. People seem to think that, they don't have to say anything, which is fine. There's a point where they have to talk later. But here, they don't necessarily have to share anything. But if it happens, just go back line by line through the data and keep asking if the information is correct. This usually gets them talking. Something will trigger them, say, no, actually, this is what happened. And once you get that first one, it all starts coming out, okay? But if they don't want to talk, it's fine. Just skip to the next step. However, if at any point during the session they do begin to talk, come back to this step. You want to, just because, you know, for whatever reason, they were worried about saying anything, and then they finally do talking. Now you got them talking, you got to come all the way back here to make sure you get to the shared level of understanding what happened. Right? Like I said, this is a significant emotional event for people. If you get them over the hump and now they're talking, just come on back. It's fine. You want to be fair to them. Okay? So state why the action was not within standards. So section number 6. I'm trying to talk with my printer a way to have this have like fireworks that go off and blinky lights and stuff. This right here, this is what we've been working up to the entire time. This, number 6. We're going to state why the action was not within standards. That customer was completely out of line. However, that does not excuse your actions. We are first and foremost a professional organization, and raising your voice at a customer is not professional. Raising your voice, which is the action, to a customer is on the list of forbidden actions outlined in the employee handbook. So we've just said that action, where they were trained and what they've signed off on, was not acceptable. Additionally, it was covered in the customer service expectations training you completed during onboarding. So we're just talking about the training that they're signed off on and what they agreed to in the employee handbook. Right? This is what it means to work here, employee handbook. Signature, they signed off on it and they're trained for it.
I have a comment.
Mhm.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking from like a customer perspective,
Mhm.
or like the person that was in the situation. If the customer is being like extremely rude and like crazy to myself as like an employee,
Mhm.
is there any point as a supervisor that you would like side with them versus the customer? I mean, I know we're acknowledging the handbook,
Mhm.
but if the customer is completely out of line and mistreats the employee, how would you address that?
So there, and this has been my case. If it is definitive, like if that customer just snapped and threw stuff at them and they immediately went and got a manager, I got that kid, basically, I got that young man or woman all day long. If they engaged in unprofessional behavior, basically unprofessional behavior, we have to have a conversation. Regardless of the trigger that's happening with them, they've signed off saying, I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to, professional courtesy is where I always go back to. They don't get to engage in that. I have managers, and I'm not paying them to be the recipient of bad behavior or to participate.
I just think of like myself as like an employee, like
Hmm?
I want to know my manager is going to take care of me. And
Absolutely.
not recommend for reacting the way I do if someone's coming at me.
Well, that's the thing. That's the training is specifically, which is the next step here. State what they should have done. The moment you felt you were going to lose your composure, you should have excused yourself and found a manager. That's in the training. Like we pay managers to get yelled at. We don't pay for frontline folks to get yelled at, which technically we don't yell at anyone to get yelled at, but that's the manager's job. And see, that's where I'll come right to you. But that is to your point here, that's how I'm protect my frontline employees. I was like, listen, if anyone starts yelling at you and that's in the training, let me get my manager. You just excuse yourself from the situation. You're not there to get yelled at. And we're going to more than likely fire that customer. That's what my managers were trained. Anybody gets shitty with my folks, we'd hand them a 6-pack of donuts and a coffee and say, don't ever come back here. You are not allowed back in the store in any circuit, and we will put you as trespass if you come back. Oh, yeah. But you see, so that was the training though. And we're very explicit about that. And that's been my way is, if anything comes up, your job is to walk away immediately. Safety, health, any of those things, that's in training I've had. So that's the out. Now, and again, if they engage in it, put it this way, and they start jumping in, you're going to get talked to about it because that's not their job to do that. It's just, we would reiterate it at that point. I understand you wanted to X, Y, and Z. That's not your job. We got people for that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you
just like think of like a scenario like as a supervisor,
Yep.
like how would I handle that and take care of my employees?
Correct.
Make sure they know that they're not wrong, but also know that they're like I stand by them, but correct the action.
But that's the thing. I don't want you to think when we're talking about this correction is they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like that's why I was saying you've got to build this up ahead of time. All we're doing is saying, listen, we trained you on this. If this happens, you turned left, you're supposed to turn right. Doesn't matter what the situation is, that piece. Now, if they go back and continue after we've had that second time, now they're actually in trouble because now they're not only going against the training, specific direction from the supervisor too. So that's kind of how it escalates. But I don't try not to get into that because I leave that in HR's world. They're the ones that talk about what the escalation piece is. This is how to execute within HR's framework. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So one thing that I've taught my staff to do is, because we get that a lot, and just kind of step back and say, I understand your frustration, and if you just keep saying, I understand your frustration, they will calm down. How can let's look at this, and then let them vent and say, I understand your frustration, but let's look at this, let's see how we can help you. And then once you kind of calm that customer down, rather than add to it, then that really helps the customer. But as a supervisor, as soon as I see a customer storming in, I mean, and you can pick it up immediately before they start yelling, come into my office. So, as you were talking about the supervisor, so
Yeah.
I can kind of address it before it hits my front line.
Yep. So, and that's what I mean. So, and that's in the training. That's to your question. They have the training for it, and that's the expectation. That's all this is to go back to. So, it's a good question though. End of the day, you know, like I said, as I said at the beginning, if someone has decided to throw their lot in with me and work, I take that very seriously from a professional standpoint. I want to help them be able to provide for their families and take care of them, who they are. So we have trained, and trust me, all of my places I've worked, we've had extensive how to deal with crazies training. Yeah, extensive amount. And again, we're catching people on some of the best days of their lives and also on some of the worst days of their lives too. So we just got to make sure folks are prepared on how to handle that to the best of our abilities. So thank you for adding that in. I appreciate that. All right. And part 8 here. Ask if they understand the proper action and have them agree to take that action going forward. Example, going forward, do you agree to get a manager if you are about to lose your composure with a customer? I need to hear you say it. Do not let them get away with nodding or just saying, okay. They need to state they understand and agree to the expected behavior. What they are doing, what you're having them do, is reconfirm that they understand the job as expected and they want to continue working there. If they will not agree to do this, and you're not asking them to do anything crazy, like in this case, this is straight up out of the training, and they say, no, I'm not going to do that, they just quit. Okay? If they say aside and they won't agree to this, they're quitting. And you need to remind them of that. Say, this means you're quitting. And I've had folks say, I'm not going to do that. Okay, well, then your resignation is accepted. Here you go. And that normally gets their attention enough. Like, wait, hold on. I'm like, okay, do you agree to do this? Because if you don't, you're saying you quit. Just be very clear on that. And I've had people say, you know what, I'm done. Great, I'll go with you. We'll get stuff. I'll let HR know after you're out of the building. Here we go. And is what it is. You know, we can't make people work for us. If they want to quit, they quit. Okay. Still finish up your documentation that you did and everything, because you know for the unemployment board, they're going to need to see some documentation. Just go about your business. Or, like has happened 98% of the time, okay, all right, and they acquiesce, and then you can have a deeper conversation about it, but you need to get them to agree to it. All right, you're going to schedule a follow-up conversation to discuss how things are progressing. So example, let's meet again the Thursday after next at 2 p.m. just to see how things are going. I'll send a reminder to your email, however you use it. Again, note follow-up is covered in greater depth in section 8. We have a whole section on it. And then 10, you're going to close the session and thank the person for their time. You're dealing with a person and they could have chosen to quit instead of showing up. The thank you acknowledges this fact. Additionally, what weren't they doing while you're talking to them? Working. So they're probably behind on some stuff, okay? I mean, can't say it's their fault for that, but either way. All right. Note, after preparing, so next one, any questions on that, right? It's pretty straightforward, but section 6, make sure your agenda's there, and that's why I want you reviewing this every time prior to going into a coaching session. Just get in the habit of pulling it out there. You won't miss a step, you're gonna catch things, and it's gonna help you be more successful as you're going through it, okay? All right, on 24, note, after preparing for the coaching session, section 5, use the following steps. So this is gonna be event coaching for reinforcement. Starts off the same. We're going to arrive at the session location 5 to 10 minutes early, prepare the area. Same thing. Seating for each of you, silence all cell phones, close any blinds, right, for rubbernecking. This is the thing, folks. No one from the outside should be able to tell if you're having a good, bad, or indifferent conversation. Every conversation that happens in your office, treated exactly the same. So when people would come into my office, I closed the blinds every time. I turned it off every time. For the good stuff too. If somebody just wanted to come in and BS and tell me something was going on, they just wanted to fill me in on something, I still went through the same thing. Everyone knew that when I'm talking to someone privately, this is what it looks like. So they couldn't tell. Because it's nobody else's business but the person that I'm involved with. Okay? All right. After you've both taken your seats, state the reason for the meeting. You do this to ensure, right? They understand. We're meeting to talk about your outstanding sales numbers this month. This is going to be a good one. This is for reinforcement. Let the employee know you have an opportunity to speak, but you want to lay out the facts as you gathered about the event first. So let me run through the sales figures first. Then I'd like to hear what you did differently this month. Share the facts you have gathered, then ask the employee to confirm, amend, or deny the information. Same thing. Your numbers came in 50% higher than any month in the last year, exclamation mark. I see you had a 15% increase in new customers as well. Was there anything you did differently this month? Note. There's a reason that note's there. Show positive emotion and be supportive. And a number of times I've sat in with folks while they're doing this and they're like, was this 50%? And they're like, this is a good conversation. We want to be up, reinforce stuff. So be positive. Lots of supportive going on. All right, so section 5, you're going to let them talk and then listen. Respond by restating what they said. This way, you are hearing what they think they are saying. Excuse me. Ensuring what they think they are saying is what you are hearing. Again, it's active listening, we mentioned before. Continue this until you both feel you have a shared understanding of the situation. Example, so here's, I think this was Sarah, if I remember correctly. I have never been particularly good at cold calling leads. So last month I asked Sharon for some advice because she is the best on our team. She sat me down and talked me through her strategy. She gave me 3 new methods and we role played a bit. That night I practiced with a few friends over the phone. The next day I landed a sale with my very first call. After that I began closing all sorts of sales. That's good stuff. We like that. State why her actions were desirable. This is 6, right? Foot stomp, fireworks, right? Reaching out for help with your development was a great move. One of our core values is always resilient. In this case, rather than give up, you were humble, asked for help, and blew away your goals. I'm sure others on the team will ask you what you did, so be sure to share. Tied it into core values. Typically, that's what you want to see, where when you see people raise their level, it's because they've embraced what would be a cultural aspect that's allowed them to move over a barrier. That's normally what happens when people, because everyone, the process is the process, move box from here to there, or whatever it is. When you see people ascend, it's almost always tied to something having to culturally, to where, let's say they've taken an additional class so that they can be a better manager. There's somewhere in your core values that wants you to see improvement and things like that, okay? All right. Section 7, so encourage them to continue with the new behavior. Stay focused and keep honing your skills and you'll be giving Sharon a run for top salesperson in no time. 8 is going to be ask if they understand the action they took, ask if they understand why the action they took was desirable and have them agree to taking the same action going forward. Just to be clear, I want you to stay resilient and keep asking for help if you need it and help others if they come to you. Are you okay with that? Do not let them get away with nodding, blah, 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 right? You're getting them to agree that they are going to continue to perform at that higher level. You need to hear them say that. Because now that they've shown that they can perform at a higher level, guess what we should expect from them? Performing at that higher level. All right, section 9. Schedule a follow-up conversation to discuss how things are progressing. So again, let's meet 4 weeks from now at 2 p.m. just to make sure you're still finding the same level of success. I'll send a reminder to your email. Note, follow-up is covered in greater detail in section 8. On to 10. So we're going to close the session and thank the employee for their time. They will appreciate the fact you acknowledge the time they invested in this session. In the case of a salesperson, if they're in talking with you, what aren't they doing? Selling. And chances are probably pretty good their compensation is based to sales. So they may be walking away from some money because they're in here for this conversation. That thank you is very important. You always think, and again, it's professional courtesy. You always thank people at the end of every one of your meetings. Period. Make it a thing. Thank you. Any questions on that? Yep. Yes.
These conversations,
Mhm.
and thinking your employee, is it okay to have like little trinkets that you give them, like little prizes? So like whenever I see my staff, they do something,
Mhm.
and I bring them in, I talk to them, I have like a little basket,
Okay.
and then I let them pick it.
Hey,
Or if they're having a bad week, and it's like, hey, I know you guys are doing a great job, you're doing the best that you can, to try and pick up their spirits, I let them, is that?
So, I'm not gonna say it's good or indifferent. If it works for you, it's fine. Have you read Drive by Daniel Pink? Just write that down. And Drive by Daniel Pink.
Pink?
Yep, Pink. Daniel Pink. It has to do with, long story short is he breaks down about 100 years worth of research into self-motivation with individuals and reinforcement and those type of things. Book's about this big. It's an easy read. It's on like the top 5 books that I put in front of my clients just so they understand. So when you read through it, I would love an email back or a call or something to say, hey, I understand why you wanted me to read this and give me an answer which way. It's completely dependent on what you're trying to do. That's why I can't answer it. So, but it's a great book. If you haven't read it, it's a fun read too. I know I'm kind of a dork about those things too, just FYI. But all right, on to 7, developmental coaching, not mentoring. Developmental coaching is a fact-based, data-driven process to evaluate the employee's current level of expertise to create a strategy for further professional growth. Think of developmental coaching as a running dialogue, and that's what this really is. When you're having, it's multiple coaching sessions. They're planned, they're organized, and they're very specific about their outcomes. But it is a running dialogue where some sessions focus on an individual's development, while others focus on specific areas of improvement with the overarching goal of increasing the employee's professional expertise. Yeah, this is where I was saying, if you have an individual development plan, if you're looking at your overall hierarchy within your organization, X, Y, whatever it is, you're able to look at and say, okay, you're here, we want to get you here, and here's the steps and all the things we need you to do to get there. That's what you're talking with them about. And you're responsible to get them there. That's the other piece. All right. Due to the nature of these conversations, you will more than likely cross over into personal issues. It's just kind of the way it goes. Financial, relationship, parenting. Use your best judgment and tread lightly. What I would tell you is the following. If anybody asks for advice on financial, parenting, relationship, feel free to insert any of those things. My standard advice and reply has always been, I'm not a specialist in that. I can find you someone to talk to. If it's financial, we can get you with a financial advisor. Typically, HR's got somebody they can reach out through payroll that we've got something there. These other aspects, I can work with HR to get you somebody to talk with it, the professional in these things. I always try to maintain that one little piece here between them. I might have great advice for me, but I ain't them. And my stuff may not work for them, and I'm not trained for that. So refer has always been my standard reply. Refer them. That doesn't mean you just hand them off. That means you can do some of the lifting for them. Say, hey, I'll get with HR. I'll get the name of our financial advisor. I'll get it to you, and I can help you. If you want, I can help you schedule a call. Just don't hand them off, but same thing. Does that make sense? So tread lightly is what I always say.
Is it okay to let them just vent? Like if you see that they're very emotional about something, is it okay to let them just come in and vent about what's bothering them?
So when you're looking at a long-term discussion about that here, yes, but, okay? You're not there to be on the receiving end of constant venting from these folks. Your job is to help them take actions that are going to correct whatever issues are going on that's causing them not to be able to work. It's no different than if they were having medical issues or anything else. You're going to have conversations about, is this getting better? Where's this at? Rather than, you're not a professional in that. And that's where I'll be like, I don't mind if you come here and I can help you. You want to hear one time, maybe twice. About that third time, like, yo, we need to get you talking to someone because it's not, you can't come in here and keep venting on this with me. Like, that's not my job. Like, I want to help you. We can talk you talking to someone. I've been in, I'm actually a really good case study for that. I've been in therapy for a very long time. I've gone to talk therapy a lot. Saw a lot of stuff in the military. Got to talk to people, right? But so I tell them, it's like, yeah, I can, it's easy enough to get a hold of somebody. And there's a lot of places, the state 211, most states have 3 to 6 free sessions that they'll pay for. If you've got stuff, but HR is there to help with those things, like to find out that information. So, yeah. So, all right. So note, after preparing for the coaching session, right? Section 5, we're going to use the following steps rather than focusing on specific instance. Gather all, again, rather than focusing on a specific instance, you're going to gather data on overall employee performance. Think of it like you're building a mosaic. Got a bunch of little tiles, some big tiles, just trying to fill in the picture of where they're at. That's what's going on when you're gathering that data, but you need specificity, specifics. All right, so again, just like before, you're arriving at the session 5 to 10 minutes early, doing the same stuff, right? Treat all of your one-on-one sessions exactly the same. After you're both taking your seats, thank them for coming and let them know you're looking forward to helping them on their path. Do your best to put the individual at ease. This is meant to be a dialogue, so this helps get them talking. Understand the first meeting is going to be awkward. You guys, it's a different type of conversation you're having with your employee because you're connecting at a different level. And if you haven't done it before, you don't know what the rules are and like kind of the boundaries are at. You're gonna have to kind of feel it out. So just understand it's gonna be weird while you're trying to get them to open up about stuff. You're not 100% on what you can really talk to them about. You got to kind of figure it out. Okay, everyone's different. I have some folks that come in and they'll have their entire plan already charted out. I'm like, oh, well, that was easy. Let's get into this. And other people like, what's this look like? And I'll be like, all right, well, let's figure it out. And it takes longer. All right. So section 3, state the reason for the meeting. Make sure they understand this will be a general discussion of their current development level, a statement of goals, and items for the employee to work on before the next session. So you're just kind of outlining exactly what's going to be. We're going to get you there, and then we're going to be some work, and then there's going to be a next session. Right off the bat, you're letting them know this isn't just one and done. There's going to be, hey, there's more to this. They're like, oh, okay. Let the employee know they have a chance to speak, but you want to lay out the facts you've gathered about their current level of professional development. So share the facts you've gathered and ask them to confirm, amend, or contradict. They're not going to deny it. They're going to contradict where they feel on the particular level. Not going to say, I'm not a supervisor. No, your supervisory level's right here. I've seen you do some tasks. You've led some things. You're figure out where that number is. Okay, that's kind of what you're going with here. Let them talk, listen, and respond by restating what they said. This way, you are, again, ensuring what they think they are saying is what you're hearing, active listening. Continue this until you both agree on the individual's current development level. Right? You've got to get to that level set, everything is shared understanding. If you are unable to come to an agreement, the employee is lower than you thought. The reason this is, and it's chewy when you hear that the first time, right? If they are higher than, they think they're a 7, you've got them down at a 5, and they're like, no, I'm a 7. If you're a 7, you actually know it, and your boss says, hey, I'm going to put you down here at a 5 on our way to 10. Heck yeah, I'm going to blaze right on up there and solidify, and you'll be able to show them real quickly, I know how to do all these things. At a certain level, you're like, I can do that. That's fine. If you need me to show you, I can show you. That's that level of maturity you're looking for on these conversations. If they're arguing saying, no, they're actually down here somewhere. There's a self-understanding you need to have, right? And just talk them through that, it's fine. I've had that multiple times. Like, listen, then just prove to me you're this. All but one time, and I did own that one, and I said, man, that's awesome. I was definitely wrong on this. I got to recalibrate. Stumble as they're trying to figure it out, and they learn something, because that's your job. right? Because you see things that your boss sees things in you that you don't see. That's the whole idea behind this. And it is, again, but it is ultimately your opinion on their development that wins. Now with that, you all, again, with you, again, if you're the boss, the rest of the employees kind of will be judging you on where you're judging them. So you're going to get feedback that way. But if you have somebody you work for, your boss is going to be looking at where you're judging your folks and evaluating you. So there's multiple feedback lines in here to basically help you calibrate. Okay? And that's okay. If you're first time doing this, I promise you, you're going to be wrong. That's okay. Because you're going to learn something, right? There's feedback loops for a reason. All right, once you settle on the development level, is that me? Hello? Oop. Sorry, school board stuff. You can wait. Once you settle on their development level, you're going to create goals for the employee to work towards. I guess you're going to have those goals. The idea is to create an open discussion between the two of you, not a lecture. You want to kind of figure out where they want to be. Remember when I said we have some 5s and that's okay? You may get into that and say, hey, I don't want to progress past this level of worker. You know, let's say they're a mechanic. They never want to leave. They don't want to move into a supervisor position. They just want to be a mechanic and turn a wrench. Cool. You can still develop them. Hey, would you be willing to take how about some basic instructor courses so you can learn to be a better trainer? Would that work for you? So that way, because we have the new folks that are coming in, and you're like one of our best trainers, but I want to make sure you have everything you need. Yeah, I'd be willing. Okay, now you found a way to develop that's helping everybody, and it's a good thing. Okay, because like I said, I'll take somebody that wants to do that all day long and they want to be a professional at it. How can I help them be better? So everybody kind of understand? Like that's how it isn't always a linear line. Sometimes it's within that area. You've got to make some adjustments. All right. So you're going to create a roadmap for that employee to reach the goal. You do this by working backwards from the goal through each step until you reach a point where the individual can take action that very day. And it's basic project management. You start at the goal, or you basically at the end, work your way backwards. All the things that they need to be. Like for instance, in order to be a manager, you have to have a supervisor in these 2 type of training classes done or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You know, if you're an employee to be a supervisor, you have to have all of these tasks assigned and filled out, whatever that looks like. Okay? But you want them to do something that very day. They do not leave the coaching session without something to do. Basically the best known strategy I use, I always have them download an audiobook. Find one you really like, you think resonates with you, have them download it, have them send the receipt over to basically the HR or the finance to get compensated, and get them listening to something. That way they're doing something. You don't want to lose that momentum. Everything you built up during the course of this thing, get them something to do, okay? And it's amazing to me when I do, and the audiobook's great because one, there's zero friction with that. They can immediately get it, but also you now have something they want to talk to you about. Like they're going to learn something new from that. Like again, when you get through Drive, I'm excited to hear what you actually pull out of that thing. Because everyone pulls 3 or 4 main topics, but someone always pulls something off to like way off in the bush there. I'm like, really? I missed that piece. I want to go back and read that now. Yeah, it's good. All right, so we're going to schedule a follow-up conversation at a later date to discuss how things are progressing. So let's meet again 4 weeks from now at 2 p.m. to see how you're progressing towards your goal. I'll send a reminder to your email. Again, follow-up is covered in greater detail in section 8. All right, on to page 29. So we're going to reaffirm your support for the individual and make sure they know to come to you for clarification or guidance if they run into any trouble. Note, like I said here, the employee should always know their next step towards the goal. They are to reach out to you immediately if this is not the case, so you can keep them moving forward. There should never be a pause in their development. If they don't, hey, I've done everything here and I've got 2 weeks before I can get this thing. We're going to find you something to do for the next 2 weeks. We can figure it out. Get a book in front of you, do something so they're constantly building up on that.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Take care. And then 11, close the session and thank the person for their time. They will appreciate the fact you acknowledge their time they invested in the session. Right? There's a reason I keep saying the same thing over again. You follow these steps every time. But again, they're with you instead of working. So we like thank yous. All right, those are the three essential coaching conversations that I covered. We got the other more housekeeping on the back end. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions or clarification that they need off of those?
What does an agenda look like?
I'm going to take care of you in a second. We got checklists and stuff there.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Which part?
So, all of it.
I get. What do you mean?
So like, this is a verbal conversation that you're talking about.
So this is in line with whatever HR is doing.
Okay.
So like, and that's the thing. This is meant to augment because everybody's a little different. Now, if your HR doesn't have, and we talk a little bit about that, that's a conversation that I've helped people with, as far as saying, you know, there's people I've started, they didn't have HR or any sort of first conversation, second, third, you know, basically three strikes, you're out type of stuff, or no call, no call, no show, you're done, those type of things, where I've helped them set that up. But this is meant to augment. And typically HR has documents that you want filled out and stuff. So the one thing that I recommend, if when you do take this and you go back to your HR, where I have the specific step that you didn't do, I always recommend talk with your HR and ask if they can augment the form so you can specifically outline what step or procedure they didn't follow correctly. So that's on the documentation, because that's what you're here to talk to them about, that one spot. So there's other ones like in the series when I work, I mean, the coaching forms that my clients use as we get into this section, they're usually 2 to 3 pages, because I've got a narrative piece, I got multiple pieces written, but we also, all the core values are there. We have key business drivers. So we're constantly tying things into them, and also the spot where the step they did that was incorrect. So we kind of just wrap the bow all the way around it so folks understand, do these things, you'll be successful here. So it's a good question though. All right, section 8, follow up. All right, follow up is a part of a coaching conversation. Follow up is a part of a coaching conversation. It is really part of a coaching conversation. Nothing feels worse than to have this conversation. Rabble, and then they ghost, and I ghost him for 2 weeks. Like your boss, you ever had your boss just like ghost you after having a conversation? They don't talk to you, right? Because it was ick. They don't want to revisit the ick. So they leave you alone. The follow-up is important because the individual, I'm just picking on you because you're right here. But this individual needs to know that it was just a conversation to correct behavior, not on them. But if you don't follow up and talk to the person, the only thing they can assume is that you don't want to be around them. That's all they're going to assume off of that. So just schedule the follow-up and talk and see how they're doing. So failure to follow up is the leading reason why employees fail to develop. Period. We think once we tell somebody not to do something, they will stop, and are shocked when they return to their old habits. All right, if this were true, there would be more people at the gym, less people with financial issues, and stronger relationships would be the norm rather than the opposite. We're talking about habits here, folks. Have you guys read Atomic Habits? It's another one just to write down, just to learn on the piece there too. Breaks down all the psychology about it. It's a really, really well done book. But yeah, and you'll see once you get into that. Okay, we get it now. I don't remember his. That's the one name I don't remember. Atomic Habits is just the name of the book. His name is just there right now. So yeah. All right. So follow up is not difficult, but we fail at its implementation. Just like preparation. Preparation is not difficult, but we also fail at its implementation. Why? Because it involves planning and work outside of our daily workload. Yeah. So, however, just like every part of your job, it does get easier the more you do it. And this is standard here, and folks. When I go back and I diagnose why I have had individuals who have failed to perform after being talked to, it's because of the 2 bookends not being done correctly. You aren't properly preparing for the conversation, and you are not following up correctly. Okay, there's a reason they have their own sections, and like I'm foot stomping them. Get this one right, and get this one right. This one tends to take care of itself. So learning to schedule your follow-up actions will simplify your managerial life. Follow-up serves multiple purposes. Checking in on our employees to see how they're doing. You just had someone in your office, again, assuming this is for correction, and they went through a significant emotional event where in their mind, they thought they were getting fired in some way, shape, or form. Now they've come out the other side with now having to make a change in the way that they do their work for whatever reason. You want to just check in on them, make sure they know, like, hey, how's that going? You doing good with that? Just, it's from a people thing. You just want to be able to do that. You're showing support for the employees, and also it builds trust. Like I said, you have a conversation with someone and you don't talk to them anymore. You think they're going to want to come to you and ask for help if they have an issue? You just get back into it. You're just doing your job. Hey, I need you to go left instead of right. Okay. How's that left versus right thing going? Good, cool, all right. I'm out, right? I mean, that's basically what it is. Now with that, if you find the employee has fallen back into old habits, conduct another coaching session. Again, they are operating outside of the expected behavior, what you trained them to do, what they agreed to do. If they have gone back into the old habits, back into another coaching session. Prepare, coaching session, follow up. The feedback loop, that's why you're following up, because you're seeing if they're actually following through on what they said. The best known method for scheduling follow-up is to use the office calendar, your office calendar system that you have. Use a calendar on your phone to set reminders. You know, when I had all of those folks, I had 9 different calendars on basically on my Outlook. And it was, you know, I had dependents, I had hospital stuff, you name across, I had stuff with the police, right? It was different things I had to follow up with. So whenever I was going into a section on a given day, I'd flip to that calendar, look at that, basically for that next week to see if there's anything I needed to talk to anybody about. That's how I handled it. But use your calendar. You can build as many calendars as you want. Have extra ones that are only for you to see. Well, I always said me and HR. That was always the one where I went back to with my HR folks. They could see pretty much every single follow-up thing I had across the board. I just always wanted to have that be clear and clean and transparent. But make it something simple. Check on Bill for invoices. Check on Sally for customer frustrations. And then you're going to set them at ever-increasing intervals. I don't know what works best for your team. It might be, might only need to talk to them twice. Once isn't enough. You want at least twice. 3 is probably the max in any of these things, because after that you're kind of nagging and they haven't moved on. Okay, so I typically like to just check in that third time. That third one, that's almost, I've followed up almost 2 months afterwards for the third one. Just say, you had any issues since the last time? It's like, no, it's been good, cool, high five. And that's it. Quick note, followed up on this date, all good. Any questions on follow-up? Oh, hold on. Got one more thing, sorry, I apologize. Reminder, follow-up is part of the coaching process. To be successful, it must be done. And like I said, you got to dive back in the ick to do it, but you got to do it. Any questions on that? All right, almost there, folks. Got a little bit left, and we'll be done here. So number 9, write it down. One of my clients, it's a law firm. They love this portion of writing it down. They were so excited that I said this on here. And I said, but this means you have to write down when you're having your coaching conversations. Even the folks that all they do is write stuff down for a living don't enjoy doing this part of it. However, one of the most important parts that you're doing. This is your feedback loop, folks. It's important to have this. So it is time for you to conduct your employee's annual appraisal, or quarterly, depending where you're at. You must use one of the following 2 lines to summarize their year. Pick one. Over the last year, you've had quite a few issues we've had to discuss. Or over the last year, we've had 10 developmental meetings and 2 event coaching for reinforcement sessions. All right, which statement has a greater impact on the employee and which one's more helpful for you? The first one sounds like they were in trouble. The second one says, man, we've been working on getting you built up somewhere and you've done some really good stuff. We can talk about it because there's specificity there. That's the key. If you go back multiple sections here, we're looking for data, not opinions. We want data, not opinions. Yeah, I think you've been doing a good job. What's that mean? An X, Y, and Z, here, you've delivered this, you've done this to this level, which was higher than, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. Data. Document every time you have a coaching session with an employee, both formal and informal meetings. And then I'll talk about kind of how I did it with my HR folks. And when I was in HR, my agreement with my managers. The way you address facts and the way you are addressing facts and data about the employee, not some vague impression of the employee. Hopefully, human resources provided a template for you to document the sessions. If not, and this is where I put, keep a running log on your computer or in a notebook, whatever, just write it down. There's more to it on the, I can't get into here's all the perfect ones to do. So for formal, you definitely want to have something that is very clinical and clean, that is going to identify which step they are if it's for correction, which step they are in, working their way towards an exit, right? You're basically, when you're coaching for correction, there's two tracks that people are on. One leads to ever greater things within the company. The other one's on to their next adventure. And each step is helping them, as they're moving up, is helping them actually move towards the next adventure. So they need to be very clear about what the next step looks like. That should be very clear. It should be in the handbook. It should be completely transparent. And no one should be surprised on step 3 when you have that final conversation that you're also handing them a box and we're loading up their stuff from their locker and exiting them from the building. Like, that should not be a surprise for anyone. Okay. Now for the informal pieces, this has been my best known practice, right? So we're just going along and I'll come over here. It's like, so there's texting during class, right? No, I'm just playing. But you're fine. But whereas, hey, blah, 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 do me a favor, don't be doing that, this and such and such. And it's just meant to be a quick correction, but it's something that if it happens again, you've got to address, right? Those little touch points. I've sent an email over to HR, say, hey, I had talked to them about this here. I just want to make sure it's there. And I sent it to HR, say, please add to their personnel file. They'd either print to PDF, drop it in the digital, print it out, drop it in the file for me. I'm the supervisor. I get to say what goes in the file. I want to have the stuff in there because I talked about it. And I say, hey, remember when we talked about it and you did it again? Now we're having a formal one. They're like, oh. But the other piece of that too, though, is all the good stuff. I was constantly sending over, like, I watched somebody go out and they took care of, especially in the donut world, kids are always knocking their donuts over. Just what they do. They get so excited, that first bite of sugar, and then it goes everywhere. And I'd see someone, they'd immediately, and not all the time, but they would come around, grab a fresh one, bring it over to the kid, and I'd see it. I'd snap a photo and send it over to HR and say, hey, drop this in this is a good thing. I want this in their file as well too. So I always used it for good or for the informal stuff. That's always just been my recommendation. If that works for your HR, great. I mean, that's good stuff there, okay? But again, everything covered in previous sections is less effective and counterproductive if you fail to keep a record. You've got to write the stuff down. And I'm trying not to say this from the legal side of it, but from the legal side of it, it makes everyone's life a lot easier. Especially if they have, they decide they want to file for unemployment, it goes to the court and they look at it. If you can send over an electronic file with, 15 pieces showing that you've tried every single step along the way to get someone to make some adjustments, and they weren't the right way, the court says, yes, you're still getting unemployment, but you're also not found to be, a negligent employer, that type of stuff, which is what you want to have. That's what I mean. So, and that's our job as on the they side of it. All the regulations are on what we are supposed to do to make sure we're being fair to employees. And that's what this is. If you look at everything we've done, because we're kind of towards the conclusion here for other stuff, this is transparency through and through. No one's surprised at what's coming next. You're being very open about the steps you need them to correct. You're not bringing in personal opinion on anything. This is, you've agreed to work here. Here it is in the job description. Here's in the training. Here's this. You've signed off on it. We're just asking you to do what you agreed to. That's it. And you've chosen not to. So sign here. That's it. Like I said, you work with your HR. This is meant to augment it. But that being said, as we move into the conclusion here, before we get into that, like I mentioned at the beginning though, you can't just jump in and start using this. You have to spend time, you have to be able to feel in your heart of hearts when you are talking with your folks and just checking in as you all are working, you're on the line working with them, you're doing your stuff around with them, that they're comfortable with you. So that way, when you need to have one of these conversations, you can have it and it can be effective, because you need your first one to be a W when you move into this. Like, it's got to be clear, clean, concise. And they walk out of saying, okay, cool. All right, that was fair. Because you know what they're doing, right? As soon as they leave, they're telling everyone this just happened. And they're like, yeah, it was like, no, they were cool about it. They said I need to do this. I'm just, okay. And I'm going to make this adjustment. That's that next little, and we talk about that mosaic, that's that little tile of trust. gets put up there. So every one of these is a touch point. All right. So conclusion, again, in case you need any more inspiration on here, but the last word the last sentence on there I want to make sure we touch on. Now that you have the method, go and give it a try. You have to practice first. Practice. You know, we as supervisors, my general managers, my directors, we had consistent practice time just to sit down and talk with each other to work with this. Same with me, because if I'm talking to my directors, I want to make sure that I'm doing this. So we practiced this a lot to make sure that we could come in and we weren't missing any steps. Now, if you have difficulty doing that, I've had folks that were in the military. There was 2 of them stuck out on this forward operating base with a whole bunch of Marines. They practiced basically there. 2 folks, just in case, you know, it was just part of the drill. So they only had 2 people, it's fine. They made it work. All right, so that is the checklist. Everybody feel good with that? If you can go down through that 1 through 8, just give it a quick perusal. All right, see, believe in yourself, folks, and all that you are. I believe in you. So with that, coaching session, prep checklist. All right, so we got this cool thing right here. Here's the prep. The what, where, when, who, how, right? Kind of a little example, make it out. Then I've got on where's it at here? Coaching session prep. Oop, I missed one. There it is. Event coaching for correction, agenda. This is example agenda, what you want to have right here. It just gives you the steps. Make sure you have your details kind of filled in. These are the things you want to hit. And this is directly off of the written form of the document. So you just go down through. So you're going to do your agenda. Is the location prepared? Yes, we're all set, done those steps. If you don't know what they are, you got it right back there. Reason for the session is you're just writing those out in your notes. Just go right down this list and you're going to hit everything. Is that helpful, Rachel? Okay. So then you got another one for reinforcement and then the last one for development. And then some stuff about me. And that, folks, is coaching for performance. Any questions?
Are you in Michigan?
Yeah, I'm in Custer.
Yeah, like, so the majority of your time.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I go back to, I fly back to Maine maybe every 2 months, give or take. We're typically I work with clients quarterly, special situation over there. My daughter still lives there too, so I don't mind going back every couple months. So, but yeah, most of my clientele is in and around Mason County. Yep. Okay, so with that, just kind of go around here. Useful? Yeah. Okay, and I'm just looking for feedback on this going through. I know it's a lot. It's 3 hours is a bit to get through. It's chewy, but there's no way I can shorten this up. In fact, I've shortened this up almost as much as I can at this point. How about you? Do you see where this might be helpful for you?
Yeah, I feel like some of this I already do, but it's nice to have.
Okay, great. All right. How in your world? I saw a lot of stuff. You're like trying. How in the heck am I going to make this work at the manor? No.
Must be a mouse in our house. That's
Like I said, this is. Yeah. And here's the thing, and just to reinforce on this, it takes time to do this when you set up and you do the work. Once you start with this, it's usually about between 6 and 9 months, the pivot happens. And you start seeing progression just skyrocket. Okay. But that's what I'm saying. Once you start this and you hold steady to this, a couple things happen. The folks that want to self-select are going to self-select because you're holding to certain things and they're going to be like, this is not for me. You're going to bring in people, and when you talk to them and you're hiring them off of job descriptions, certain things like that, this is just what they know. So you got a whole new set coming in. Oh, this is just what they do here. So you've level set at a level higher, and the people that really thrive under this, they're already with you. So now you've got this whole reinforcement wave that just hits, usually between 6 to 9 months after you start this. So.
Not necessarily the job itself, they have skills to do the job, it's the behavior.
It's almost always the behavior. It has to do with, there's a lot that has to do with people self-sabotaging while I was bringing it up. There's an entire library full of things you can look at where folks, depending on how they're raised in their household, where they've been trained to not excel. Because anybody who did better in a household was different, they were basically attacked. That's a thing that exists in a lot of households, to where you don't have that household it wants excellence. So they don't really know how to do it. So you've got to kind of cultivate that in people. Once they get it though, they like it. That's what this tends to do. So
I always work on mental self-esteem, or if you don't feel good about yourself, it's
Mhm.
so it's more about that.
Yeah.
But I've never worked in a place where behaviors are so low.
yeah, it's one of those things where, especially if you're in an environment where people are worried about doing something wrong more than doing things right, which is what I've seen a lot of organizations. They're more concerned about doing something wrong, doing something right. That you need to help them stack some little W's, little wins. And then when they get a little win under their belt, they do something, you say, hey, I need you to do this, and they do it great. You overcompensate, like, that was awesome. I love the way you did that. And just talk about the action they took, then give them something else, a little bit bigger W. That tends to, over time, get them up. There'll be back steps, don't get me wrong. It's not linear. But typically in that type of environment, I say just stack as many little W's as you can.
So I have a comment on that too.
Mhm.
Been a- Do you think that, like, current employees that have been there for that they could have been trained or have a different mindset because of the manager and their style?
Say that again. I guess I'm trying to,
Like,
are you saying because there was a crap manager before?
I don't know if there was, but if there was, would that have been the?
Yeah, I mean, ish. Ish.
With no rules and you know, somebody step in and say,
Correct.
"That's a bomb."
That's really hard.
Yeah.
Kind of like letting your little kid do whatever he wants to 10 and then be like, okay, these are the rules. We've
Yeah.
already allowed it for 10 years.
Yeah, so,
That's overnight change.
and that's the thing. So you've got a lot of behaviors you have to unlearn. But the way you do that is not by addressing that individual. That's why this is here. You're just trying to say, no, left, not right. Well, when I used to do left before, such and such, like, am I that person? No, I'm asking you to go left. Just go left and see what happens. Oh, this is great. See, like, you've got to be able to, like I say, I hate to say shelter animal, but it's very similar to that, where, they're used to doing anything, they get yelled at or screamed. Again, professional courtesy. That's why I bring it up. Just be professional about it. It's amazing. And again, I can only say it as the person who's lived this for a very long time. But when you start treating people this way, but you set the expectation and hold them to it, and it's reasonable, i.e., we just want you to turn left, not right, and then they follow through, and you support them there, people flourish. It's amazing. Like, you see a whole sea change occur. But there's also 30% that they need to go to a completely different place to be able to be successful, because there's too much baggage where they currently are at, and it keeps triggering, and they don't know how to reinvent themselves there. It's just, it's just the nature of, how folks are sometimes.
Workforce, where they're at, you don't have a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
And it's not like someone you don't know disrespect, but there's 24-hour care that has to happen.
Yeah.
Body has to be there.
Oh, we ran 24 ops. Don't get me wrong. So that's the thing. None of this has to do with donuts. And that's the other piece here I want to make sure we reiterate. We're getting towards the end here. At no point, again, where I mentioned I had the folks in Portland, they're counter-revolutionary, whatever it is, didn't care about their story, where they're from, whatever. It didn't matter. They were trained to do something. We were paying them. They agreed to do that, and then they didn't do it. That's all it is. And when you have an appropriate box for people to work in, this doesn't matter if you are a CEO all the way down to a frontline employee or whatever. As long as people know exactly what that box is, this is the expected behavior, they will perform. We're all like that. This isn't just, speaking out of wherever. You know exactly where the boundaries are, you're going to do great. This is what I got to do here. Okay. But you have to be there to reinforce that and correct them in those spots. Because I've been on the other side. I mean, I mentioned I was in the military and they sent me to go in and I had to fix a bunch of organizations. I've went into some places where there was rampant thievery, embezzlement, outright abuse. This is in the military with staff that they were completely beaten down and did not know how to operate. And, it took almost, on one of them, it took me almost 18 months to rehabilitate. And that was through gaining trust, reteaching them it's okay to say words, we're not going to get after you. So it's, but also, like I said, I had to get rid of almost 40% of the folks too. So,
We keep a really good care of the residents that live there, not about the work.
Yep. yeah. So, and that's part of that is this, when you're being open and straight with them, and I'm not saying you're not being that currently, but when you put it more clinical, that's what I say, give us some time on this. You have to do some heavy lifting, obviously, to build up that trust, whatever that looks like for you guys. I don't know, again, I don't know your situation, but it's the same thing for everyone. That trust has to be there. And then all you can do is hold them accountable to what their actions are going to be. That's on them if they want to turn the corner or not. Like that's ultimately where it comes down to. So you can only do so much. How about for you guys? Good, bad, and different?
Very good.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. So gentlemen, how about for you? You see this with your crew?
I enjoyed it. A lot of what you've been saying kind of reminds me of Kaizen too.
Mhm.
It seemed like you based a lot of this on that, and getting the trust.
I mean, I'm a supply chain manager too, so I get, yeah, I mean, I can't help it.
But yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
Okay, good, awesome.
So I don't have like any direct employees underneath me, so I can see where it would be helpful. Also, though, for me coaching, I was thinking more of a team building thing. That's what I was kind of thinking this was more of.
Okay.
More of like, hey guys, Thursday we're gonna have a busy day. Here's what's gonna happen. Here's what's coming in, and need help. Get some help or come, that type of thing.
Yep.
Like more of I can see where if somebody's had a problem or see something good or something bad where you need to address it.
Mhm.
That's also coaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And that's what I mean. Again, one-on-one, these are coaching conversations. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So, okay, good. All right, with that, so I appreciate all your time today. With that, in the off chance you need to get in touch with me, ask anything, you can find me at any of these spots here. Again, with the YouTube, if you want to watch some guy in his garden doing stuff, I actually do a lot of garden stuff on my YouTube too. So, but yeah, definitely though, if you have your LinkedIn, please reach out and just connect. That's usually the easiest way to get in touch with me. I'm always on LinkedIn there as well. So, but with that, thank you for your time, folks. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Yes,
you have another one of these coming up in March.
I do. I have one. Yeah, it's on the. No, it's going to be for the hiring system that I work with my clients use. It's in March. Yes, I have one here, and I also have one in Ludington as well too. So,
Okay.
yep, and that's it's basically a 4-tier applicant funnel that I have filters in place. It's one that a lot of my clients use to great success. So,
Yeah, I think that one's gonna be really
Yeah.
good for me.
oh yeah, for sure, absolutely, absolutely. It's on the chamber calendar. Yep, it's on. I don't remember which one this is. Yeah, it's something like that. I can't.